All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so if we could get a very brief overview on E4. Thank you, Casey.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Happy to expound on this. As staff often does with projects, we look for alternative funding. This particular grant was identified as being available through the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, and it's specifically designed to help energy projects, in particular solar projects associated with the Bay Area CARB rules, which are what requires us to replace some of the vehicles that we operate with electric vehicles. So this is their means of trying to help us pay for some of those things that they mandate on us. Staff applied for it and was awarded $3.2 million, which was more than we had originally budgeted for the project. So we are going to be able to slightly expand what we had planned to do and do it much sooner rather than wait and pay for it as we go. So,
Can you share how much expansion we're talking about?
yeah, we're going to install the infrastructure, which will allow us to ultimately go up to about 50 level 2 EV chargers and a couple of level 3 EV chargers, which will allow us to fully automate our entire fleet if we ever get to a point where we have an entire electric fleet. But it will allow us to power all of the vehicles that we begin to transition to, and hopefully allow the infrastructure to let us charge larger vehicles as those become available on the market, like garbage trucks and larger heavy-duty trucks that aren't currently available in electric form yet.
Oops, thank you. And Councilmember Mendoza?
On the E5? Yeah. So when I'm looking at the budget, I sent you a question about what else we've been spending on. And when it comes to this, it says 50% of the fund, that there's a fund that lives there out there for these things. And I'm looking back at the meeting from March 26th, right? Because there was 3 different things. And this one specifies 50% of this fund comes from the general fund. So I guess it's kind of like a finance question. So every year, how much money goes into this from the general fund? And is it just budgeted every single year to move on over? Or do you assess what you're going to need for the year and move that over?
I think Carrie would be better suited to answer that for you.
Yes, good evening. The actual dollar amount that comes in every year, I'd have to look that up, so it may take me a minute. But in terms of process, we do a schedule of when we believe the vehicles are going to be replaced, and we put in money, kind of average it out, so we have a steady flow of money coming in, and then we have a minimum balance that is typically a couple years worth of vehicle purchases, kind of as our minimum balance, and so that's how it replenishes itself every year. There's a set amount that gets put in based on our replacement forecast for the next 5 years.
Okay. Is there a schedule during budgeting that you can share with us so we can see the ebbs and flows of those
Oh, yeah.
dollars? Okay.
We have that.
Okay.
That would be something maybe we could take to the committee if you're on the committee.
Yes. Thank you. And that was my question. I wanted to understand, like, okay, how do we decide the money come in and how long does it sit there? And because it seemed like it was a lot of money sitting there. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other clarification from staff or questions from council members? Okay, so if we could get a motion to approve the final 2 items?
So, oh, go ahead. I was just going to say so moved.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar, the items pulled from consent.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, thank you. And moving into public hearings, we're going to hear an amendment to the Brentwood Municipal Code to update Chapter 5.68 mobile vending and an amendment to Chapter 17.850 temporary use permits. And Jennifer Hagan, Senior Planner, and Linda Shale, Senior Code Enforcement Officer, will present.
Bear with me momentarily. Okay. There, if you could go ahead and share my screen. Happy New Year's. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, we're here to consider the amendments to our Brentwood Municipal Code for Chapter 5.68, which is our mobile vending ordinance, as well as Chapter 17.850, which regulates our temporary use permits. This is a collaboration between planning and community enrichment, and we are both here to answer any questions for you tonight. As a quick background, Chapter 5.68 was originally presented to the City Council in February of 2024. And after initial consideration, the City Council directed staff to continue to work on the ordinance with LUD and bring back concurrently with amendments to Chapter 17.85 to allow for approval process for vendors who could not meet the requirements laid out in Chapter 5.68. Based on that direction, staff has continued to refine these two chapters and has now brought back final amendments for your consideration. The first chapter under consideration is Chapter 5.68. The proposed amendments here include more precise definitions and new regulations for mobile vending throughout the city on both private property as well as in the public right-of-way. Some of the proposed amendments include, but are not limited to, changes for the application requirements, including prohibiting registered sex offenders and those convicted of specified crimes in the previous 5 years from applying for permits. It also prohibits all vending within private and public property within the downtown core district, which is here in red and also included as a specific exhibit attachment of the staff report. Operating restrictions as part of the public right-of-way include prohibiting all vending within 300 feet of a single-family residential zone outside of the hours of 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Saturday through Sunday. And it also prohibits vending within 100 feet of a similar business without written business operation or written permission from the business owner. Operating restrictions for private property include limiting to 1 mobile vending per property. It's also required that the mobile vendor is ancillary to the property and not a primary use. Therefore, you cannot vend on a vacant parcel. It also prohibits all vending within 300 feet of a single-family residential zone and prohibits all vending within 100 feet of a similar business. Time limits that have been included in Chapter 5.68 include limiting vending on private property to no more than a cumulative of 4 days within a 30-day period. And it also restricts vending to 3 consecutive hours within the public right-of-way. Staff is proposing that this ordinance be go into effect on March 1st of this year. Staff has conducted extensive outreach before the City Council meeting, as well as additional outreach, which will continue through the ordinance effective date. To date, staff has not received any comments or concerns prior to this meeting or the previous continued meeting, which was in October. The next chapter is Chapter 17.850. The proposed regulations here would create additional land use regulations and standards that are applicable to long-term vending facilities and commissaries that cannot meet the specified requirements in Chapter 5.68. Overall, they would be required to apply for a temporary use permit, which would be approved for a 12-month period from the time of approval. Their initial submittal would be required to go through a major TUP, and they would be allowed to go through a minor TUP, which has a smaller application fee upon upon subsequent renewals. Some of the long-term vending facility regulations that would be applicable to the TUP include additional setbacks requirements, parking requirements, seating requirements, as well as utility and accessibility requirements. In addition, staff has included additional commissary requirements for commissary applications that require them to be owner-operated. It also limits the number of mobile vending facilities per site, has additional parking requirements, and requires county approval. And with that, staff is recommending that the City Council waive the first reading and introduce an ordinance approving the amendment to Chapter 17.850 for temporary use permits, as well as an ordinance approving an amendment to the municipal code for 5.68 for a mobile vending ordinance. That concludes staff's report. I am here to answer any questions you have on Chapter 17.850, and Linda Shale is here on behalf of Community Enrichment to answer any questions related to Chapter 5.68.
Thank you both. Any clarifying questions of staff?
I have one question. There is a section where it says prohibition on vending of alcohol, cannabis, adult-oriented materials, tobacco, and whatnot. When it comes to the vending of alcohol in special events from those carts, is that how are you going to look at that?
So typically, special events are required to go through special event permits. So if it's on private property, you could get a one-day TUP to allow for that purpose. So similar to some of the other TUP requirements, if you can't meet the exact letter of Chapter 5.68, the additional option would be a temporary use permit. But special events on public properties go through our Parks and Recs department, and on private property, they would go through the planning department.
Got it, thank you. And the second question I have, this is strictly for food and beverages, correct? It does not entail any other services like mobile pet grooming or anything like that?
It's actually for anyone that's a licensed mobile vendor. They would have to be approved by the county for what they're vending. And then if they met our requirements, then yes, they could vend something else mobily.
Thank you.
I would like to clarify too, during COVID, there were neighborhoods where food trucks came into the neighborhoods, and of course, it became social events during that time. Is that something that would not be permitted with the new ordinance?
If they were able to meet the requirements of setback and hours of times that they were there, they could be on the public street to do that kind of activity. If they wanted to have multiple vendors, say on somebody's private property, they would need a TUP because you can't have more than one there at any given time.
Okay. And if a private homeowner wanted to have a big event and have a taco truck, for example, in their driveway, could they get a permit for that, or is that completely prohibited?
That would be prohibited at the current state with this ordinance, if I'm not mistaken, Jennifer. They could park it in the street within the allowed time limits, but more than likely they wouldn't be able to have it in their driveway.
And would that require a permit for them to park it in the street?
Not if they were able to meet the requirements of the hours of operation or the distance from an additional residential property. And it's all, it's for most of the day on the weekends where that would be the typical time that activity would occur.
Great. Thank you very much. No other questions? Okay. We will open up the public hearing and call on public speakers.
If you're participating via Zoom, please raise your hand to speak. If you're in person, please file a speaker card with the city clerk. We'll take public comments from those participating in the council chambers first, and then from those participating via Zoom. Remarks are limited to 5 minutes. Your microphone will be muted if you speak on items that do not pertain to this agenda item or after the timer has expired. We received 0 written public comments in advance of this item. I do not have any speaker cards. And I'm sorry, I'm checking Zoom, and I don't have any hands raised in Zoom either.
Thank you, Amanda. I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? No. And moving into council discussion.
Well, we've already worked on it, so it took actually quite a few sessions before we felt like we got it right, getting just a lot of feedback from businesses downtown, the DBC, and some brick and mortars. So I think, sometimes you can't help everyone, but I think we got to the best place we could to make as many people happy.
Thank you. And we can take a motion now, if we're ready for that.
I move to introduce and waive the first reading of an ordinance approving an amendment to temporary use permits to add regulations related to long-term mobile vending facilities and commonsaries.
And I'll second.
All in favor? Whoops, all in favor? Aye.
If I may read the ordinance title.
Okay.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Brentwood, California, repealing and replacing Chapter 5.68 of the Brentwood Municipal Code regarding mobile vending and declaring the ordinance exempt from CEQA.
And now we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposition? No. And on to the second motion.
I move to introduce and waive the first reading of an ordinance approving an amendment to establish a new mobile vending regulations.
Second.
Okay, do we need to read that first?
Sure do. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Brentwood approving a zoning text amendment to the Brentwood Municipal Code, RZ 24-004, which would amend Chapter 17.850 temporary use permits to add regulations related to mobile vending facilities and commissaries.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No. Okay, moving forward. Thank you. Item F2. This item is a public hearing regarding the fleet electrification project. Casey Wickert, our Public Works Director, will present.
Good evening again. Thank you. This item we're bringing before you tonight is the public hearing portion of a project that we're delivering under the 4217 Government Code section. The Government Code 4217 allows public agencies to have an alternative procurement method, and its intention was to streamline and allow various energy conservation projects, things like LED light exchanges, HVAC exchanges, solar installations. So one of the major advantages of a 4217 project is that it speeds things up and allows us to go outside of our traditional design, bid, build process, which can be long and cumbersome, and allows us to engage vendors early in the project and do them in a more like a design build agreement. So in this case, staff's intention is to work with Schneider Electric, who helped us identify and apply for the grant that we received of $3.2 million. Our intention is to make the 4217 findings based on their energy analysis, which we show that this project will save energy over time and save significant costs for the city. And then we will take this 4217 findings and their legal consequences for that, apply that, and allow us to bring back a contract with them at a later date for you guys to approve it outside of our traditional design, bid, build process. So that's the genesis of it. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any clarifying questions? No, okay. We will now open the public hearing.
If you're participating via Zoom, please raise your hand to speak. If you're in person, please file a speaker card with the city clerk. We'll take public comments from those participating in the chamber first, and then from those participating via Zoom. We did receive one written public comment in advance of this item. The summary is displayed on the screen. I don't have any I don't have any speaker cards in person, nor do I have hands raised in Zoom.
Thank you. And a motion to close the public hearing, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? No. And on to council discussion. Seeing none, we can take a motion. I'm happy to do it. Okay.
I'm ready.
Go ahead. Oh, my goodness.
As
the new
detailed
year.
in the staff report, I move to adopt resolution adopting certain findings pursuant to the Government Code 4217 related to a turnkey design for the fleet electrification project, CIP project number 337-37265.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? No. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to business item G1, and ordinance amending Title 16 subdivisions and land development of the Brentwood Municipal Code consistent with the provisions of state law, Senate Bill 684 and 1123. Eric Nolthenius, Planning Manager, will present on this item. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Pleasure to be here tonight. Just a little bit of background on this item. So state law, which is the Subdivision Map Act, authorizes local governments to regulate and control subdivisions of land. Each local government then adopts its own implementing ordinance to establish certain requirements. And our ordinance is included in Title 16 of the Municipal Code, which is subdivisions and land development. So Senate Bill 684 was put into effect on July 1st of last year. And basically, it requires local governments to ministerially approve maps and projects for 10 or fewer lots that meet certain requirements, including the number of units, parcel sizes, density, and then they're to be located on lots that are zoned for multifamily uses that are less than 5 acres and surrounded primarily by urban development. The key thing with this new state law is that there's no discretion. In other words, there's no commission or council review. There are no public hearings. It's simply administrative or staff level. There's sort of a companion or follow-up bill, which is 1123, that basically expands upon 684. And among other things, it mandates expedited approval process for these small lot subdivisions on vacant lots in single-family zones as well. And it puts into place several requirements that become effective on July 1st of this year. And I'll just go through these briefly. Requires the height limit to be at least the limit that is allowed in the existing zoning designation. It requires parcels on single-family sites to be at least 1,200 square feet. allows the units to be tenancy in common in terms of the ownership. Also prohibits the existing dwelling from being sold separately from another dwelling on the property. Does allow local governments to prohibit ADUs and junior ADUs on these small subdivision parcels. But if for some reason they are allowed, they do not count toward the 10-unit cap. And it also adds a definition of net habitable square feet. So adoption of the ordinance isn't required by state law, but if it's not adopted by the city, it doesn't really stop state law from being effective. So staff definitely recommends developing the ordinance and putting it into our code. It's beneficial for both staff and the public to have it in one spot so that people aren't looking around in various sections of the government code. In terms of the review process, we've already developed a checklist that would establish eligibility for any proposed application that comes in. I just wanted to note that we haven't received at this point in time any requests for properties to develop under this new state law, but we do have the checklist prepared and ready to go. It's broken into a different sets of criteria, including development and objective design standards. Again, design review is ministerial, which means it would be taken care of at staff level. There's no consideration by the Planning Commission. But again, we can impose objective design standards. There is also no environmental review that's required for these kinds of projects, so there will be no preparation of CEQA documents. And then I mentioned this earlier in terms of timing. Basically, what the law requires is that within 60 days from receipt of a complete application, staff will have to determine if that map either complies or does not with all the requirements, and then it would either be approved or denied. And then failure to take action by the deadline would result in a project being deemed approved. So the recommendation at this time is to have the council waive the first reading of and introduce the ordinance that would amend various sections of Title 16 and also add a new chapter 16.190, which puts into place the process and all the requirements. Again, this would update and streamline our existing Title 16 ordinance to comply with the provisions of these two laws. Following the second reading of the ordinance, which we anticipate to be at the next meeting on January 28th, the ordinance would then take effect 30 days afterwards, or February 27th. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions. I will say this is, again, it's very dissimilar to our existing ADU regulations, which have been amended over time. This is brand new, so nothing's been tested. We've done our best to prepare the ordinance to comply with the different provisions of these two laws. But to the extent certain questions come up, I may rely on our city attorney as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. Any clarifying questions?
Yeah. Eric, can you talk a little bit about parking requirements with this?
Yeah, I can. Let me go to the ordinance itself. This may take a minute to thumb through, so I apologize.
It's okay.
Katie, do you recall where in the ordinance it might refer to the parking? I'm not seeing it right offhand.
Yeah, so the ordinance does provide that we can impose our objective standards. Our parking standards are generally objective. It looks to section 17.797004 and says that we cannot impose a standard that would be inconsistent with our existing requirements, but then goes on to provide that in addition, we cannot require the parking to be enclosed or covered as we otherwise might. So that is a deviation from our existing standard in that regard.
So if we have street parking and we've already used that street parking to cover existing housing, how do you determine if a space is for the existing housing or the new housing? And how do you do the math for like that whole area?
So I'll kick this back to Eric as to whether or not we do in fact use street parking to satisfy the parking requirements of our residential development projects.
We don't really. So new housing developments are all generally required to provide parking on site in the form of garage or other kinds of spaces. We don't count whatever street parking might be available to an applicable project. It's basically just extra parking.
So for these, would then you use street parking to fulfill the parking requirement?
I don't believe we would.
So they would have to have a space?
Yeah. But as Katie mentioned, I don't think it would be required to be either enclosed or covered. Is that the way you read that, Katie?
Okay, it just has to be on site somewhere.
Correct.
Because ADUs, some of them we don't have to have parking for some. So is this different? So you would subdivide, build a home, and it would be different than an ADU?
Correct.
So it's more of a housing requirement than an ADU requirement then?
Yep. And we also built into the ordinance, because the state gave us the option to either allow, since you mentioned ADUs, either allow or prohibit them. We're writing into the code that they're prohibited, so they're not allowed as part of these developments.
Okay, thank you.
Just to help a little bit at least.
And Councilmember Mendoza, the cross-section that I referenced requires one parking spot per unit. So that would be the requirement for these. Okay. Thank you.
So I had a question, it may be either for Eric or Katie. Excuse me. If SB 684 and 1123 are repealed or replaced, would it be an automatic repealing or replacing of our Title 16 ordinance that mirrors it? Or would it be something that someone here, whether on council or on staff, would have to discover or find in order to make those changes?
I don't want to step on Eric's toes, but Eric, I can jump in if you'd like.
Step away.
So yes, if either of these two bills were to be repealed by state law, we would need to come back and formally amend our own ordinance in order to keep step.
Okay, thank you.
No. Eric, I'd like to, can you provide a kind of a real life example of what one of these developments would look like? For example, what would a density bonus look like? Can you give us any idea, just for the public awareness here? Because this kind of thing is a little bit confusing.
I really can't. I have no idea what these are going to look like. I do know that the way the law is written, it allows the units to be created on extremely small lots or parcels. So depending on the zoning, either 600 square feet or 1,200 square feet. You know, a typical, what we would consider like a medium density project, like if you're familiar with the homes that were built on east of Sand Creek Road, east of Brentwood Boulevard, what we call the Scortino Ranch property, those lots are generally about 4,000 square feet. And I believe all those homes are 2-story, not a lot of yard space. So these lots would be, you know, like a third of that. It's really hard to kind of picture. I have no idea what one would look like.
Okay, I'm glad it's not just me. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, so we will open up the public comment period.
If you're participating via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're in person, please file a speaker card with the city clerk. We'll take public comments from those participating in the chamber first, and then from those participating via Zoom. Remarks are limited to 5 minutes. Your microphone will be muted if you speak on items that do not pertain to this agenda item or after the timer has expired. I have one card in person. Melissa?
I need like a little, hello again. I'm here to express my begrudging support for the proposed amendments to Title 16 of the city's municipal code in order to comply with SBs 684 and SB 1123. However, I believe that as we move forward, it's critical to include provisions within the boundaries of state law that ensure any new housing built on eligible parcels is accessible to low and moderate income residents. California's affordable housing crisis is a reality that we feel in our own community. The high cost of housing has made it increasingly difficult for many of our neighbors, including working families, young professionals, and seniors, to afford a place to live. While increasing housing supply is important, we must also ensure that the homes being built address the needs of those most impacted by this crisis. First, I urge the city to leverage the Surplus Land Act. This state law mandates that any publicly owned land offered for housing prioritize affordable units. If Brentwood has any public parcels that could be used under SB 684 or 1123, let's ensure these developments include a significant portion of affordable housing. This is an opportunity to prioritize equity while meeting state requirements. Second, I recommend that the city raise its inclusionary housing once again from 13% to 20% for new developments, including any projects proposed on parcels of land eligible under these two bills. While I'm aware that builders are currently allowed to pay in lieu fees for any new development under 10 homes, a higher inclusionary housing standard will ensure that a greater proportion of homes are reserved for low and moderate income families. This adjustment is reasonable, reflects the urgent need for affordable housing, and demonstrates Brentwood's commitment to supporting residents who contribute to our community but are struggling to remain here. Third, I recommend the potential creation of affordable housing overlay zones. These zones could offer incentives like some fee reductions or I suppose expedited approvals aren't really, since it sounds expedited already, but basically would encourage developers to include affordability in their projects. This would align with state law while promoting a balanced approach to growth. Finally, I'd like to highlight the value of partnering with community land trusts or housing cooperatives. These nonprofit organizations focus on creating and maintaining permanently affordable housing, ensuring that new developments provide long-term affordability for our residents. This is about more than just meeting legal requirements. It's about preserving Brentwood as an inclusive and welcoming community. Without deliberate action, these streamlined processes risk creating housing that's out of reach for many of our neighbors. By prioritizing affordability, we can ensure that our city grows in a way that benefits everyone. In closing, I do urge you to approve the proposed amendments to Title 16, but with strong, legally permissible provisions that prioritize affordable housing. Brentwood has an opportunity to lead the way in addressing the housing crisis responsibly and equitably. Let's make sure we seize that opportunity. Thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration of this issue.
I have no other hand or speaker cards in person. I had a hand raised, but it's gone down, so I have no hands currently raised in Zoom.
Thank you, Amanda. Any council discussion?
Yes, so this one is a local authority being usurped by another Senate bill. Just always we get these things that come and we don't have really any authority to say anything on them. And so I just want to make sure that the public knows what this means. It means there's no CEQA requirements. There's no public notice requirements. And I think this is why over the last, 2 years, you've been hearing about how important it is for us to have objective design standards. Because there's the only type of authority that we'll be able to hold on to with this. So I'd prefer not to even have anything in our laws that, in our ordinances that promotes passing homes on small lots ministerially. And it's only 10 homes or less, but still that's sufficient amount. Giving 1,200 square feet is tiny. Yeah, but anything that helps us make it a little bit easier on our process, we're just mirroring the law. I just want to make sure I ask the question about repeal or replacing to make sure that it's not repealed or replaced, and then we still have it sitting here and we're still promoting that law. But thank you for your answer, Katie. I think that helps big time. It's my little discussion.
I think you all know how I feel about this. I despise is actually nice of a word for all of these state bills that are passing. You can go on and look at the Turner Center. They list all of the bills. We have a gazillion bills that we have to implement in this coming year from last year's session, and we will be having more now. 1,200 is a very, very small lot. Like we said, I think some of the smallest are about 4,000 in our city. 1,200 is really, really tiny. And we're not paying attention to the infrastructure. And it's interesting because on one hand, Newsom is signing all of these bad bills. On the other side, he's like, oh, we got to take care of infrastructure when he's talking about the fires. And I don't think that he is thoughtful as he should be with these housing bills. I continue to tell everyone to visit ourneighborhoodvoices.com so that we can pass a constitutional amendment that we then decide what of these housing bills we want and what we don't. And if we were to pass the bill, the day that bill passes, we can come into session the very next day and repeal all of the housing bills that we don't want in our city. That is the only way to do it, because if they don't pass a bill today, next session they're going to pass a bill, they're going to tweak it a little bit, get a little bit more money from other lobbyists, and then go ahead and pass it. So Chris Cabaldon and Anna Marie Ferries, like, please email them. Tell them not to vote for these bills. They are bad bills, and they don't care about the people. They only care about the lobbyists that write the bills and that are funding their campaigns.
Tell us how you really feel.
That was nice, because you heard me.
That was
not be
very nice, actually. Any other comments?
I would just like to echo what my colleagues have said. Local control is super important for our city, and advocating for local control is very important. So having our voices heard and emailing them, calling them for our local state assembly and Senate is vital for us to keep fighting anything like this where they're taking local control away from us.
Nice, sweet, short, ditto. I agree with everything you guys said, and I couldn't have said it better, so my bad.
I would have to agree too. I mean, we keep losing more and more control. And even in talking about the design standards, objective design standards, we still have nothing to say about it. Planning Commission still will have nothing to say about it. Staff can have some say in it, but ministerial means there's no approval that comes to us. We have to say yes. We have no option of saying no. And as we were talking about earlier, we don't have any idea what this is going to look like and what it's going to do to our city and where these sites are going to end up and what kind of a quality of life someone's going to have with a 1,200 square foot lot. So completely agree that they're reprehensible. This is not the kind of lifestyle that people move to Brentwood for. And we as council, I think we've all said it, wish we could do something more, but we would encourage all of you to advocate the way that we are trying to do as well, to your senators, to your assembly members. Make social media posts about this. Again, visit Our Neighborhood Voices and raise your voice every chance you get, because this is not getting better. So do we have a motion? Actually, we need to. I was just going to read something.
Forgive me, I'm so sorry. I just want to make one clarification. We are still allowed to impose our local objective design standards, as council has discussed, but you'll notice that buried in this new law is a requirement that even those standards have to yield under certain circumstances. And so we are, of course, incorporating those limitations on our own objective design standards as we're being forced to by state law. So I didn't want you or the public to think that they would always be upheld, because there may be circumstances as set out here where we are forced to yield. So that's all.
Can I ask another question real quick? Do you know how we have that page with all the ADUs on it? Can this be added to that ADU page so that neighbors can know when these projects are coming?
Yeah, we can easily do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It looks like the reports have been received and no further action is needed. So motion at this point would be appropriate.
I'll make a motion. As detailed in the staff report, I move to introduce and waive the first reading of the ordinance amending Title 16 consistent with the provisions of state law. And the city clerk has to read that.
I can wait for a second.
I'll second.
And I'll read. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Brentwood amending Section 16.020.030, 16.020.050, and 16.020.060 of the Brentwood Municipal Code, and adding new chapter 16.190.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The item moves. Moving on to G2, the amendment number 2 to the agreement for artist services with Motivated Metal for the Radiant Convergence Public Art Spaces, CIP number 337-37244. Tian Nguyen, Recreation Manager, will introduce this item. Thank you, Tian.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy New Year, Mayor. Happy New Year, City Council. As mentioned, Tia Nguyen, Recreation Manager. I'll be presenting tonight's staff report in regards to Public Art Space Project Radiance Convergence. For tonight's presentation, we're very excited to bring forward this project for Council's consideration. The project, like the other public art space project, Fields of Time, is a major artwork that's designed to be highly visible in Brentwood, aiding in welcoming visitors to the city, but also representing Brentwood's rich agricultural heritage and history. With that, for tonight's presentation, I'll provide some visuals with more information about the Radiance Convergence project. So on your screen, you can see a concept rendering of Radiance Convergence. It is designed by artist Seth Palmeter of Motivated Metal. The project, as mentioned, is one of the public art space projects formerly called the City Gateway Projects. And that original name was important because it was, again, designed to welcome visitors, be highly visitable, and have something to represent Brentwood for those who come and visit our city. The dimensions of the monument is expected to run 57 feet long, 12 feet wide, and 20 feet tall. And the monument's located in the median of the Sand Creek Road, visible from Highway 4. So here are additional renderings of the project, and on the left, you can see as it's displayed here, that's Highway 4 in that background. This is a different perspective of the same monument. You can also see on the image on the right, they're showing that traffic on Sand Creek. So again, this is a project that we're very proud of and excited to possibly move forward. The project was recommended by the Arts Commission following a national call for art, and it was approved by City Council in 2020. Tonight's staff report represents a path forward for the project by amending the artist agreement for separation of duties for the artist to have additional funds available for them to complete the project, as well as the city being responsible for the installation of the artwork, and then other changes to the arts agreement that also sets a target date for completion of the project at the end of this calendar year, 2025. As mentioned, the project has spanned many years. We're excited to move the project forward. The project is funded from the Public Art Space CIP, with that money being available now to complete the project, and that CIP is funded from public art acquisition funds. So tonight, city staff has some considerations for City Council. The first one, city staff is recommending the City Council adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the city manager or designee to execute amendment number 2 to the agreement with Motivated Metal for Radiance Convergence. Alternatively, City Council could also choose not to approve staff's recommendation. If this is directed, there's not a timetable or end date for the project as this was not laid out in the original artist agreement, as well as a number of challenges for the artists due to the timeframe that's passed. They will be challenged to be able to complete the artwork and the project itself, as it's expected not to have sufficient funds for the full project. Alternatively, City Council may choose to continue the item with direction from city staff or direction for city staff to return with additional information. This concludes my presentation, but I'm available to answer questions or provide more information about the monument or staff report as requested.
Thank you, Tian. Any clarifying questions?
And I might have read this incorrectly. We're going to install it, not them anymore? And we're going to pay $5,000 more?
Correct, Councilmember Mendoza. So as mentioned a little bit in the staff report, as we saw, there's been a long period of time that's passed since the initial agreement with the artist. Similar to the other public art space project that we had with Fields of Time. Supplies, labors, all those things have gone up over time. We, similarly to the other project, we do want to take on the installation of the project just because that allows us to comply with a number of California codes as far as construction on public sites. But it is, as written in the staff report, an amendment to increase some of the funds for the artist to be able to complete the project and then separate out the installation for the city to take on that responsibility.
What's the estimate for installation for staff hours equate to dollars?
Installation, it wouldn't necessarily be installation by staff. We would go out to bid for the construction of it, and that's going to include the cement portion of the footers, as well as placement of the art. But I think, I apologize, Councilmember Mendoza, original estimates were a little bit under $50,000, but again, we haven't gone out to bid for that yet. So that's currently an estimate at this time.
So we're going $55,000 over budget. So the original budget plus these 5,000 plus another 50,000 to install it. Because its installation was originally part of the original bid.
Correct. Thank you, Councilmember Mendoza. So originally, back in 2020, when the artist agreement was agreed on, it included creating the artwork as well as installation. 5 years has passed. A good amount of those costs have risen, including materials, labor. They have been storing the parts of the project over a number of years. Those costs have increased. So that is part of the reason why the price has changed over time.
Was it our fault or their fault that it's taken so long? We ordered it, right?
So I'm not sure how to answer that question, Councilmember Mendoza. This agreement was agreed upon, I believe, roughly February of 2020, and then it was amended in March of 2020, and immediately after that, COVID happened. So even before the artist was able to even start on the project, purchase their supplies, do all those things, they did hit all those COVID delays. Once they were able to kind of restart, all those costs for supplies and labor all did increase after that.
But shouldn't that conversation had before he invested the funds? And I mean, it seems like he started like, oh, I started, but now I'm going to raise you. It's going to cost more. We should have had that conversation back then about a budget increase, not now. And how much have we already paid the artist?
Give me a second, Councilmember Mendoza. I have it somewhere, but just let me find it real quick.
Okay, so we did 87,000 in 2020, 43,000 in 2023. So we've already paid the bulk of it. So it's not like we can back out.
Correct. I think if you're referring to the draft of the agreement, there was a initial payment and then another payment in 2023 with progress of the, for lack of better terms, the poles that were fabricated for the project.
Yeah. I wish that we would have seen the price differential when it was first communicated to us, right? Like it's a like we already had a contract. I don't understand why we have to pay more if we already have a contract. Like it's beyond me right now.
I agree in the sense that we're raising the cost of the project, and the staff report made it seem like, $5,000. Technically, we're raising the cost of this project by $55,000 which is almost, a third of the original cost of the project for something we could have talked about in 2023 when we could have decided whether we were going to continue on with this or not. It seems like a pretty big raise in price just because time has passed and it's costing more money. At $55,000 is a lot of money for an art project when the original cost of the art project was $122,000 installed. I'm $222,000.
I have two questions. Thank you for your presentation. What is the ongoing maintenance fees looking like for this project? And I'm assuming city staff would actually do that.
So I don't know, Councilmember Maloney, what the ongoing fees are yet, but it would be city staff because it is going to be placed in a median for ongoing maintenance. What I can say to that is the median does have landscaping existing in it right now, so it would be part of the responsibility of I believe it's TerraCare who maintains that median. As far as the landscaping that's going to be actually going into the planters, is that your question, Councilmember, or just
I'm
overall
thinking-
the ongoing maintenance for the
The actual
and
metal, because it's going to rust, you're gonna have to seal it, you're gonna have to maintain it in that perspective.
From my understanding, the artwork should be powder coated to be weather resistant, be able to be outdoors. What we can do is follow up is kind of the life expectancy of it, but it is designed and intended to be outdoors for extended period of time. So those were all considerations with the design of the project.
Thank you. And Katie, I have one question. What would it look like if we held the artist to the original contract?
He may argue he is now owed reimbursement for, and I don't know the nature of the change from artist installation to city installation, what kind of arguments may be raised in that regard. In addition, it may be worth talking to staff about whether the city would actively prefer to have city staff undertake that maintenance rather than or installation rather than have the artist do it for various reasons. And that's not information I have.
Thank you.
Could the cost of the installation be removed from the full amount that we are planning to give him, since he's not doing that part of the process anymore?
So I would say staff, we're not excited about having to come and talk about a project that's increased by this much. So we apologize for that. And for a variety of reasons, I don't know all of them, but we're here before you 5 years later on a project that was awarded in 2020. I think all of us understand costs have increased. Dealing with artists is not always the easiest. This is a beautiful public art piece. That when I saw it today, I didn't know what it was supposed to look like until I saw a picture. It's supposed to look like a pivot that's in a field. And when I saw a pivot next to it, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. It took me someone to teach me what it looked like. If the council wanted to scrap the project, we could, and we could go back to the contractor. We'd be out a significant amount of money, and you can always move forward with a different art project. What we brought for you today, or this evening, is to move this project forward. For too long, this project and another arts project that you've talked about significantly have been talked about, never been installed. And our Parks and Rec staff has done a great job just trying to get those moving forward. And like I said, we're not happy about it. You're right, Councilman Mendoza, we could have come before at a different time and shared more information before money was expended. We are where we are today. And that's why staff kind of gave you options. We can, if you decide to not extend it, our assumption is we'd go back, we would work with the artist, we would have to pay that artist, and that would just be money that had been expended for the project. And then we would go through a different process to try to identify a new piece of art in that location. But that's up to the city council.
But I guess, don't we have a contract that they signed that says they have to execute?
We can definitely go back and try to work, but I don't know if you want to talk a little bit.
And I know you weren't here when this all went down, but it's like, I feel like if there's a contract, I don't understand why we're just moving the budget. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, this might be more discussion, sorry.
Okay, I think we can move on to public comments at this time.
If you're participating via Zoom, please raise your hand to speak. If you're in person, please file a speaker card. We'll take public comments in the council chamber first, and then from those participating via Zoom. I received no written public comment prior to this item. I do have one speaker in person. Melissa, just a moment.
Hello again. Sorry, I was not intending to speak on this item because, like we've pointed out, I figured it was a done deal in 2020. And yes, COVID backed things up. And as a working artist, Darren, I tend to be a little easier to work with. That being said, every client that I work with in my business as a photographer, I have a contract for. And the contract, it stipulates what I present on my end, you know, what my deliverables are, what my services include, and also what is expected of the client. On the client's end, they're expected to provide me with a time, a date, a place, and what they're looking for out of their wedding photography. And then what they also pay me, including the retainer. I have very specific terms for the retainer is due immediately to reserve their date, and then the balance is due a month before. Obviously, COVID made a huge dent in the income for wedding photographers, and there was you know, a lot of policies changed. My own personal retainer and payment policy changed to reflect what I saw happening during COVID. That being said, the contract is meant to protect both parties. And so if the city signed a contract with an artist and the contract specifies, you know, it has laid out the payment for the work that is expected, then that legally, I would think, is what should be adhered to. It is what is expected of the rest of us. And so I would think it is what this artist would be expected of this artist as well. That being said, if I had a wedding booked for 2020, of which I had many that I had to postpone, and my costs of materials, say for a wedding album or a canvas or a print, if that has gone up, it stipulates in my contract that their price is locked in no matter what the cost to me is. This is how artists that I know of typically work. And so I am appalled that now here we are, and I don't know what the holdup other than COVID has been, because weddings have restarted and other artwork has restarted and people are gathering and living life as normal, and have been since probably about 2022. And so I'm not sure what that is. But if the contract stipulates that the artist is supposed to come and install this, and this is the cost of materials, and now here we are five years later, and not only are they asking for $5,000 more, which if we do agree to that, then what is stopping them from coming back and asking for even more than that? Because let's be real, with the incoming administration imposing tariffs on materials such as metals for building, that price can go up again. And so that is something that I urge you to take into consideration. Also, in the fact that they are not fulfilling their end of their contract in the installation of this, I think it is absolutely absurd that now it's going to cost the city potentially an additional $50,000 when it goes out to bid. So I definitely think that, and Catherine, I'm sure that you can speak to this more as an actual lawyer, you know, and not somebody who just has the knowledge of how an artist business operates. I would urge maybe continuing it. I know it's more strain on city staff, I apologize, but to see exactly what the holdup was, why they're coming back in higher. Yes, I know labor and material costs go up, but that is something when you wait so long to complete a project that you're contracted to do, that you may find yourself up against, and you eat those costs. $222,000 is a heck of a lot of money. I wish that I made that kind of money as an artist, you know? But I think that it needs to be addressed, and they need to uphold their end of their contract. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm new here, but this seems like a lot of money to me. And he says $50,000 is like an approximate bid you think you had, but that was a while ago. So I'm assuming that would have gone up too. If materials have all gone up and then installation's going to go up before we agree to this, wouldn't we get an actual number before we say, okay, we'll give you $55,000, and then we find out that it's another $25,000 to actually install it? They're going to have to rip up the median. I do know that powder coating doesn't last forever, especially out here in Brentwood. I do old cars. So the powder coating is going to go away. It's going to rust. It's going to get hit by vehicles. It's going to be vandalized, I'm sure. So those are all costs coming down the road. They're gonna have to rip up the median to put it in, then they're gonna have to replant. Seems like a lot of money that after we've already spent a lot, we're gonna spend a lot more. And then the maintenance is gonna be a lot in the years coming. So I like the idea. To me, it doesn't look like a wheel line or a pivot, but I just think it's a lot of money. So it's something to consider. That's all.
Ian?
Honestly, I just want to know, what did the contract say? Did this contract say they were going to install it? Because if they were going to install it, they need to install it. We're not going to uphold our end. If the artists will not uphold their end, I don't know the contract. The city attorney does. And TN, I'm sure you've seen the contract. So wherever that contract says, let's stick to it and make sure the city sticks on our end as long as the artist sticks to their end. But this is going to cost way too much. And Sand Creek's going to be a hot nightmare with Bridlegate going on, unfortunately. And then we have this new extension. So we have a new traffic pattern going on. That road's going to be a hot nightmare. And also, if it's like I heard $220,000, that's a ton of money. That's more than one of our officers. I'm sure the chief can say, like, do we want to expend that kind of money too on a piece of art? Like, it's cool, but tariffs are going to eat us alive, and economics are going to be very different starting in 6 days. So we have to see what goes on, and we need to keep an eye on our bottom line as a city and stuff.
I have no additional hands or speaker cards in person or hands raised.
All right, we're going to get into council discussion. I'm going to take a prerogative here and say something first. I'm appalled about this too. I do want to let everyone know, if you're not already clear, that no one on this council had anything to do with this. We were not part of the original process to approve it. I don't even know if the art commissioners that are currently commissioners were part of that original approval process. I mean, we're all going to have more to say. But I also did want to say, just for clarification on art projects in general, that this is a bucket situation where these funds, as much as it seems like there were an appalling amount of money, can only be used for public art projects. If you wanted to clarify that any further.
Yes, Mayor Meyer, that is correct. So these funds are public art acquisition or administration funds. They are specifically earmarked only for public art projects. This is not general funds, so these are only be able to use for public art projects.
And that is a question that comes up every time we talk about art projects, so thank you for clarifying. We'll go into council discussion.
Yeah, I get to talk. So I want to clarify something else. Tian, I thank you for your report. And I don't think you were here either. So you're catching the heat for some work, and your predecessor is not here to receive that they were a part of. So I want to thank you. You catch a lot of heat and had nothing to do with it, but I appreciate you trying to be a part of the cleanup. I would move my colleagues to vote no on this, and I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. I've been sitting here, and thank you, Melissa, for coming up and saying what you said, because I was sitting here saying, okay, so what are we going to do to put in some type of agreement? Because this sounds like a change of work order to me. It sounds like a change of work order to increase the amount received. I don't even know why we wouldn't just let them install it at this point to save $50,000. And I think the staff report should have reflected that that there will be an additional ask for installation. I know that's an estimate, so it may be more, maybe less. But it should have included that for our consideration. I'm not, well, I guess I can say this. I'm not the biggest fan of the project, especially when it costs over $200,000. And we have people who don't have a place to stay. We have people who still, based on what Leo stated, the number of people who came out for food who don't have food to eat in our city. I would just feel like this would be ridiculously irresponsible for me to vote on something that, if it was $5,000, maybe, but because we know that it can be in excessive of $55,000, $65,000. It could be more, we don't know, right? I would think that this artist who would want to do more work in other cities, because this lives in perpetuities, this council meeting, would say, you know what, forget the 5Gs. You guys are already taking money off of my hat. You know, I don't have to install it, so it's not a big deal. So I would actually like city staff, to give us an estimate, as the gentleman stated, on what the construction cost is. I'd also like for another conversation, a seat at the table to find out, is this a change of work order? Is this amending our agreement, because I don't think it said that in the staff report. This amends the agreement, or if it's a change to agreement. And another thing is to really talk to the artists about how how livid the council is with the fact that they're asking for $5,000 when they just made $180,000 on some pieces of metal flying in the sky, and it's not flying us to and from a location. So that's all my discussion piece.
I have a question about the funds, because when I look at the CIP project, it says that there's 286 from capital infrastructure, 100,000 from public art administration fund, and 400,000 from public park acquisition fund. So the CIP project says something different than what we just heard. That's my first thing. And that's on page 189 of the agenda packet. And then the other thing, this is the second time they've come to us for more money. They came to us for money in 2023. And that is on, and I do remember something, and that was on starting on page 229, continued, and says on July 19, 2023, the Art Commission reviewed and discussed amending the agreement with the artists, and the commission recommends that the City Council approve the additional funds for the project. So, amendments, and then in 2020, so is that these funds, or is that different funds from July to now?
So let me answer the most recent question first, Councilmember Mendoza, and I'll work my way backwards. So in the previous actions, we did present, and I apologize, that's on me. I didn't include the budget comparison for y'all to be able to look at from 2019 to where we were with estimate in 2023, and then kind of where we are now. So that's on me. I appreciate y'all calling that out, and that's just for me to provide next time if we're presenting this project. What was mentioned in the previous actions was we did get an estimate. So we did get an updated budget from the artist back in 2023 when we were trying to restart the project. That was something that we presented to the Arts Commission to kind of see if they were still interested in the project. A lot has changed since 2020 of the original execution of the agreement. So we were trying to give Arts Commission an update. They had a discussion on it as well, and they did provide a recommendation to move it onto council for considerations. That was part of the conversation. That was part of the conversations with this amendment itself. So they weren't asking for money twice. It was out of that conversation where we started negotiating with the artists, where we ran into the California construction code, and because it exceeded a certain amount, there was different discussions on how we can continue moving the project forward. And one of the thoughts was to separate it out so that the city would take on the construction of it versus the artist based off estimates they gave us in 2023. I think the question prior to that was there was an amendment to this agreement pretty close right after. So from my understanding, this was executed in February of 2020. And then in March of 2020, there was amendment number 1, which was just solidifying the location of the artwork. So the reason why this is amendment number 2 is because that first amendment moving the location, and then this is amendment number 2, potentially changing the scope and amending the agreement. The other question I think you asked, Councilmember Mendoza, was specific to the budget sources.
Yeah.
I'm not specifically sure about this. I don't want to give you bad information, but I do believe a good amount of it was really coming from public art acquisition and public art administration. But unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for you of where the capital infrastructure funds are coming from on the CIP sheet. So unless Carrie has a better answer, that's something I'd have to follow up on.
Yeah, so I've been looking at the history of this project, and it goes back to about 2007, not this particular individual piece, but what was called the Four Corners originally. It was a strategic initiative back in 2017. And at that time, the $200,000 or $233,000 was allocated from capital infrastructure. I think it would be worth considering removing that and replacing it with public art funds, because public art funds are much more restrictive than capital infrastructure. And I think capital infrastructure can be used for let's say, other purposes for economic development, which might get you a little bit more bang for the buck. And we do have sufficient public art funds. So I think that's a totally valid concern and something that we should consider changing.
Okay. And then, and I've asked for this before, I think and this is not to be mean, because I know people think I'm mean, but I think we need to do a better job of how we present the financials, right? Like we were saying, like, I knew what it was saying, right? 50,000, 5,000. Well, I didn't know it was 50,000 until I asked you tonight. But I think we need to do a better job of transparency on financials, and I've asked for it multiple times. I don't think financials should be narratives. I think financials should be in financial format in our staff reports. Even though that might not be what you all are trying to do, when someone uses a narrative versus a financial layout, it feels like something is trying to be hidden. And again, I'm not saying that's what's happening, but because this is my world and I see it all the time. When someone wants to hide something, they make it sound really fancy and not like they're not. So if we could, Darren, and I know Tim's not here, but I think that, and I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that, but we shouldn't have to dig into things to understand exactly what's going on. And in this one, we had to dig in to say, it's not 5,000, it's over 55,000. So I want to go back to the artist and say, no, we have a contract, execute per the contract. If you're not going to install, then let's back out the funds that were used for installation. And what is the new total less the installation funds? And then we can take those dollars and use them in-house for our own installation. But I don't want to pay more for something because maybe they weren't here, but I was here at the original meeting. I'm the one who asked for it to move from Balfour to Sand Creek because it was right under the golf cart bridge. And I'm like, why are we putting this under the golf cart bridge? It doesn't make any sense. So I don't know. I think that I don't want to pay more. So, yeah.
Hey, Katie, is this contract governed by public contract code?
So short answer is I do not believe it's governed by the Public Contract Code, but it is governed by a whole host of other laws, including the Visual Arts Rights Act of 1990 that give artists particular rights as opposed to the vendors that we typically work with. So some of the terms that aren't spelled out in the original contract, an amendment would give the city a vehicle to address some of these things. I'm not suggesting you approve the amendment. I'm just saying that is one different thing that we would be able to do with an amendment. It sounds like maybe there's some interest in this coming back to you after staff does some further work on it. So that's something that staff could tackle.
The only thing I wanted to add was, and maybe I misunderstood when you spoke, but back in 2023, when we brought this back and looked at it, did we already agree to take on the installation?
No, Council Member Ollerman. So when this was brought back in 2023, it was brought back to the Arts Commission for recommendation based off of an updated budget we were provided. City Council hasn't seen this hasn't seen this. Y'all didn't see this in 2023. This is the first time y'all are seeing this as a council, I believe, since 2020, I believe.
Okay, thanks. That was it.
Okay, I'm not sure what the motion's going to be, but this is the time to take one.
I would like to make a motion that we continue this to a future date and request that staff reapproach the artists to abide by the original contract and back out the installation amount so that we can install it ourselves. I don't know how you all feel about that.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment that we get an estimate of what the installation cost will actually be.
Yes.
Did you want a second?
Yeah, I'll second it with the friendly amendment. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? No.
And Mayor, can I just make sure that Tien understands?
Of course.
Tien, I know that the motion already occurred, but are you okay with the feedback, or do you have any additional questions for council?
Sorry, so I know the motion was passed. I just want to clarify, maybe read back a little bit, kind of my notes. But the motion is to have staff come back with more information, with reaching back out to the artist about separating back out the cost of installation and what that looks like and what that looks like. And then also, I think part of that motion was estimated cost for installation. So having that information brought back to council for consideration.
Actually, I have a question. I know this is voted on. In thinking about the long-term viability of this, if there's a lifespan for it and what the annual cost could be, is there a way to incorporate that into understanding the costs here or no?
I don't think that it needs to be part of the motion, but
Okay.
so appreciate the other comment. That was something that was brought up during the discussion. The same thing, we will also bring back information as relates to how the CIP was funded and if there needs to be any changes there.
Okay, thank you. So we have a final vote on that. We already voted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for the extra.
Thank you, Tian.
Yes, thank you, Tian.
Thank you.
Okay. Item G3 is the consideration of the proposed list of proclamations for 2025, and Amanda McVeigh, City Clerk, will present.
Thank you. My presentation is pretty short and sweet. It's just an opportunity for you guys to review the proposed list that's been presented in the staff report and offer up additional proclamations. I know that there had been previous conversations, and include those in the new list that would be approved tonight.
So was there going to be an additional one that was discussed?
I believe there might be public comment.
And we can do it then?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. And then I would love it if we could get the list on the screen when we do that as well. Any clarifying questions? Then let's move into public comment.
If you're participating via Zoom, please raise your hand to speak on their public comments. If you're in person, please file a speaker card with the city clerk. We'll take public comments from those participating in the chambers first, and then from those participating via Zoom. I have Ian Cohen.
All right, good evening, council. So as you guys probably know, well, except the new council member Maloney, welcome. I founded the chapter of Future Business Leaders of America over at Heritage High School here. And in our first year last year, we placed 7 participants. 6 out of the 7 made it to the state place there. And then we took a team of 5 to the state level. And then I made it off to the national level and brought home a trophy to the city of Brentwood. So while going through the FBLA website with my current board of officers right now, we learned that FBLA has a week, February 9th through the 15th, which is the second week of February, called FBLA Week, which again, FBLA stands for Future Business Leaders of America, where the proclamation will read all of this, but basically we're all students. We're not only just business leaders. A bunch of students across the nation are people who are focusing in business now, but they go on to be future politicians, future doctors, engineers, business leaders, public administrators, everything you can think of, they're in FBLA. And we will love the city of Brentwood on an annual basis on the second week of February to recognize FBLA Week and with the Heritage High School chapter to recognize the students of Brentwood who are making it to the national level to showcase how it's done here and how well students here are doing academically and in their careers. I will personally work with the city clerk to make sure the proclamation matches exactly with Heritage High School. So year over year, it matches the accomplishments of our high school. And this will be a great way for city council to connect with the youth and highlight the success of our growing student population here in Brentwood. Thank you.
I have no additional speakers.
Thank you. And council discussion on this item.
I have a list that I would like to bring up to your attention to see if we can maybe add those proclamations. January 9th was National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. It would be nice to have a proclamation for it. March 19th is National Agriculture Day. We are an agriculture town. That would be very nice to have as well. April 9th is the National Former Prisoner of War Recognition Day. We have many former prisoner of wars in our community. I would love to recognize that. The first week of May is National Teacher Day. or awareness. May 6th is National Nurses Day. June, Elder Abuse Awareness Month. And July 27th is National Korean War Day. And if we can recognize in October Domestic Violence Awareness Month, please. Those are what I would bring to the table.
Thank you. Amanda, are you able to put the current list up on the screen? And were you able to jot down everything you just heard?
I was working with tech at the time, but I think Darren was jamming
I can send
them
you a
out.
list too if you'd like.
Perfect.
And none of them are on the list.
Correct.
And I would certainly support the idea of bringing in the future business leaders of America as well. Any other discussion? Okay, we can take a motion on this item.
I move to make the motion of adding the 8. Would you like me to list all the proclamations again?
You can go ahead and read it through the list one more time. That'd be great.
Okay. I would like to add the following onto our proclamation list. January 9th, National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. March 19th, National Agriculture Day. April 9th, National Former Prisoner of War Recognition Day. The first week of May is National Teachers Week. May 6th is National Nurses Day. June is Elder Abuse Awareness Month. July 27th is National Korean War Day. And October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
And a friendly amendment to add the future business leaders as well. Did you have the date for that?
February.
It's February 9th, second week of February.
And with that friendly amendment? if
One
it's
more friendly
accepted?
amendment.
Yes.
March 31st, National Farm Workers Day.
Okay, so I'm going to second with that friendly amendment as well as mine.
Second.
No, I already
Oh,
seconded. That's okay. All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposition? No, we're moving that one forward. Thank you. And moving on to G4, this is the City Council committees and committee assignments for 2025, including the formation of an LLAD ad hoc committee and a Charter City ad hoc committee, and the transition of the Debbie ad hoc committee and the age-friendly ad hoc committee to standing committees, although that part was already done. And Amanda McVeigh, City Clerk, will introduce this.
Thank you. So yes, this item does give us the opportunity to establish 2 new ad hoc committees, establish the committee assignments, and to establish a standing meeting schedule for the Debbie and the Age-Friendly Communities Committee. I'm not sure how we can get public comment in before or after jumping into making the assignments, but I think that taking public comment prior to is going to be the most efficient.
Okay, certainly we can do that. I did want to mention that it's age and disabilities friendly. It was listed a few different ways in the staff report.
Noted, thank you.
So then, for clarification, you're suggesting we go to public comments first
I think
before
so, yes,
discussion?
because
Okay.
to jump into it, we'll have to share the screen to show all of the committees and then go kind of step by step to fold all of the different assignments and creating the meeting dates themselves. So
Okay, so let's hear public comments.
fantastic. At this time, we'll take public comment from those participating in the council chamber, followed by those participating via Zoom. I have not received any speaker cards, nor do I have any. Oh, I lied. Actually, I did have Ian, but he escaped, so I have no additional cards in person.
Okay, so at this point then, we are going to move into discussion. I would like to say before we start that I think this, for me, is a very important discussion for us all to have together. I don't think there was any necessity for me to make decisions on anyone else's part. I think the idea of us having the dates and the times and the locations of these meetings ahead of time is also going to help with this discussion. We talked about adding to the list, and it looks like we did, I think. Which of these committees, these regional committees and appointments are required for the mayor to be a part of, and which of them are an option? So I just want to make sure we've got clarification on what all of those assignments are as well. So let's open it up for discussion. Does anyone want to go first?
I'll start.
Vice Mayor Pearson.
So I'll just throw out which ones I'm interested in, and we can have a, I guess we're gonna all talk about what we're interested in. So my interest is, I've really enjoyed being on the, on all the committees. I've had an opportunity to get my feet wet, so to speak, and I'm grateful for it. I would like to remain on LUD, Debbie, and age-friendly disabilities communities. At the Contra Costa Mayor's Conference, it only makes sense for me to be the alternate, as being the vice mayor. And then the only other one would be, I'd like to stay on school interagency and Tri-Delta Transit Board. I think it's really good for a new council member to be a part of the League of California Cities. I'm appreciative that I've been able to do that for 2 years, because it really is knowledgeable and you learn a lot from it. So I'm happy to give up my seat, and I love Pal. So I'm thinking there's somebody, look, she gave me her look already. So that's why I already know we have another officer, and I'm like, you know, I'll open up the door for her, but I'm still gonna be a part of there and still show up because I love them so much. But yeah, I already know where I think you may wanna be at. So I'd give up that seat for some other seats.
Yeah. The only one I'm
Hold on, I
passionate
think
about.
Darren has a,
If the council would like, we have an Excel sheet, the same
Yes.
Excel sheet we used last
I'm
year.
sorry, I thought you were doing-
And I will put up that Excel sheet, and then as each council members describes which one they want to be in, I'll just put their initial next to it. And then as you have your discussion, you can determine who it is, but at least you can look and see what everybody's requesting and make
that
sure
would
that I
be
get
great.
everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if I said that. School Interagency and Tri-Delta Transit Board. Those were the last two. So I think for me, that's just 6 of them.
Okay. And for me, the only one I'm really passionate about is land use and development. That's the only one. And then Tri-Delta Transit I was interested in as well, but we'll see what happens with that.
And for me, my schedule is constricted from my working job, so I'm gonna be picking the best options that would allow me to not miss any meetings, basically, on those committees, because I want to make sure that I'm 100%. I am interested for our city council committees, the agriculture enterprise. What are the days that the Debbie committee meet? Okay. And then I am interested in, let me see. I am interested in the land use and development. And when it comes to regional and other local appointments, I am interested in, I wrote it down, give me 1 second. The trans plan, but I don't know what dates they meet. And I'm also interested in the school interagency.
Councilmember Orlemans?
Looking at the agricultural committee, I had just gotten on it. I would like to give it an actual run at it, so I would like to stay there. The municipal code review committee, surprise pal, I would really like to stay on. I know that's a big surprise for everyone,
Yes,
but and I apologize. The Tri-Delta, I just took over as the vice chair on that committee, and I would like to finish that out and move on as the chair, but completely understand if that doesn't work out. I have been the alternate on Transplant and BART and State Route 4 and Equifa, and don't mind staying on with that if it, unless somebody else is really interested.
For clarification, Councilmember Maloney, you are not requesting PAL?
Not at the moment, because I have to go every Monday. I would love to, I just have to wait. I would not be able to make every Monday. I will
So-
attend on every Monday that I am off. But
So Vice Mayor Pearson, is that something you'd like to be added to then? Microphone.
I will be at every event.
Yes, why not? I'm not showing my excitement at all.
So do we have confirmation of which of these regional and other appointments are mandatory for the mayor to attend or to be a part of? The ones that say vacant, for example?
Yes, I do have on, it's saved on your desktop, but I can also go through another list where it's noted. The California Association of Councils of Government is not required, but historically it has been the mayor. There are only, I believe, 2 boards or 2 bodies that are definitively the mayor as the primary, and that's the Contra Costa Mayors Conference and the Delta 6. Any other previous ones that former mayor had sat on, it's just a historically been sat by the mayor, but it's not required by the body itself.
Okay, thank you. I would like to list myself as, for sure, age and disabilities. Still love to be a part of Ag Enterprise, given the work that we've done on the Innovation Center there. The Debbie Committee. Let's see. I am interested in ECRFA. And I'm looking at 2 different charts here, so bear with me a moment. Transplan, oh, that's part of ECRFA. The Tri-Delta Transit. And so I think that's leaving us with some that are blank.
Can we do our coin flips for the ones where we have 3? And then, because that will then lead us to like, do I have more bandwidth?
Also, I'm seeing my name is not under Debbie. That was one of mine. And I think there's something called race and equity. I don't think that's such committee. Number 9. I think it's just Debbie. You can keep me on the, if we don't have it filled already, I just wanted to live space. Nobody ever thinks it's as sexy as I do, the Municipal Code Review Committee, but I nerd out over that. So I'd love to stay there if I can.
Can they tell us what the Lighting and Landscape Assessment District funding is? Because that's new.
I'll turn it over to Carrie for that one.
Yeah, so this is really a 2-parter. It's a little bit of a spinoff of the Finance Committee, but the concern was the scope of the Finance Committee might be getting a little too large to be an ad hoc. And so we have, as you know, the sound wall replacement that we're talking about. And so we want to look at not only the sound wall we're currently talking about, but what our strategy is going forward. And then we also want to talk about the funding structure of the LLADs and kind of long-term what that looks like and how our revenues and expenses are going to match up over the long term.
LLADs have to be voted on as a parcel tax, right?
Yeah, it's a vote.
Do you think residents are going to vote for an LLAD when they already get the services today?
So I don't want to get too far into this because I think that's
why I mean, like, I'm not going to sign up for it because I just don't think it's feasible, and I don't.
Yeah, I would say that the intent here would not be to form an LLAD. It's looking at existing LLADs and the structures, not to establish anything new.
And can I add, so you have items that'll be coming before the city council. And the idea is similar to your budget committee, is that there would be a group that would be able to discuss them prior to them coming to the full city council for discussion. And Carrie mentioned one of them, which is the wall project.
Well, I think we could do that in a budget subcommittee. I mean, because I'm fine with the budget part. I don't want to look at LLADs. Like, people signed up for that when they bought their homes. So I'm not interested in that. So budget side, yeah, but LLAD, I don't want any part of.
That project is funded by your LLADs, and that's the reason why they're using it. The purpose of this is not to discuss new LLADs and asking residents to increase their LLADs. That's not the purpose of the meeting.
Well, I mean, no, we're not saying it's funded by that. We need to find funding dollars. We discussed that before another meeting, right? Because someone didn't charge enough LLAD. Therefore, now the city's going to have to come up with some of those dollars.
I think
for the
you're giving the example of why we need a committee of council members to have more discussion in depth about that issue.
Yeah, and I think my discussion is this is something all 5 of us should discuss when staff presents to all of us. I guess I don't see the need for that subcommittee. I think that that's something that should come back to all of us.
And let me, this is a good point to talk about it. None of these committees give direction to staff to make final decisions. These are advisory committees, and then the city council actually has to vote on any item to move forward. So these committees don't make policy decision and direction. There's just like with the budget has discussions, then it comes back to the full council for consideration and adoption. The budget and debit management committee is not the one that makes the final decision.
Yeah, I'm fine with being, like, if you want to add me to budget and debt management committee, and we can talk about specifically CIPs and how we're going to fund them. I don't necessarily want to be part of a conversation on LLAD funding because that is already a sunk cost based on when people voted for their LLAD. And if you were coming to me as a resident going, hey, we didn't charge you enough, I want to charge you more, I would,
I just want to make sure the residents understand that's not the purpose of this committee. We're not talking about increasing cost. We're not trying to, that's not the purpose. The last thing I want someone to see is this meeting and thinking that the city's proposing to increase an LLAD. That's not the purpose of the meeting.
So, but if we have okay, so let's take the walls as an example because that's already come to us before. We've already talked about it and it's actually on my list tonight for future agenda items. If there is a CIP project for the Fairview Sound Wall, for example, and it's $2 million and there's only $1 million in the bucket, we have to find this $1 million somewhere else, right? And these are not real numbers. This is just me throwing out. So I don't understand why that wouldn't come from a budget subcommittee and why it would go to an LLAD funding committee because the funding is the funding. Either I have it or I don't, right?
We're not really ready to talk about a specific project. I think that if the council does not want to have this committee, and maybe Carrie could talk a little bit more, you don't have to establish it.
Yeah.
Staff is recommending that you do because there's items that'll need to be discussed. And just like all of these committees, they come back to the full city council for approval.
I think if you're going to come with this committee and you say there's items that need to be discussed, then we should probably know what items are going to be discussed to decide if we think this is worthwhile.
One of them is the wall.
And I think the wall should fit in budget. Yeah, as under CIP. I think the budget subcommittee should have a new focus this year to be CIP project review. And I don't think we need it out of the LLAD. And that's just me. Everyone else might think differently.
So you want to get rid of this one and you just signed up for the budget committee?
Yes.
Yay.
Yeah, that's what I'll do.
I have a question. I also don't see my name. It says alternate and me as the alternate. Got it. I see the names up here and I see a lot of empty spaces. If we hadn't said anything, does this mean that the people who were previously on them are accepting to stay in their seat? Or do we need to give you everything, including the ones that, if no one said anything, just keep us on it? For example, the 2025 Commissions Interview Committee was Joel and Jovita. Are you trying to stay on there or
which
no?
one?
The 2025 Commissions Interview Committee.
No, I don't need to stay on it.
Okay, so these are all still staying vacant,
Yeah.
but I see that there's still names and spaces. So I'm just trying to understand, do we need to go line by line and see if someone's going to accept this or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I would definitely agree with that. And I would also volunteer for the interview committee. Is it Darren who's typing?
And for me, since there's 3 people on land use and development, I can be an alternate if that's an alternate situation.
No, there's no alternate.
Does it or no?
No, it doesn't.
Oh,
have an
okay.
alternate.
Then you can remove me from that one. That way it's not 3. We can't have 3 on these committees, correct?
No, because of the Brown
Yeah.
Act.
I'll stay. Mayor, are you going to stay on the agriculture enterprise?
That's the one
Okay,
That's
no,
the
that's
one I
fine.
really wanted from the very beginning, to be honest. But we can also coin flip.
We coin flip too.
We've done that before.
I don't mind leaving.
I don't mind leaving, walking out the door.
I mean, it's, the agricultural committee is brand new to me. I was just
Turn on your
trying to
mic.
figure out,
It was on. It's actually.
just trying to figure out if whether I was going to say, but I honestly don't mind if Faye would like it. That's fine.
I wasn't sure if they had your name on everything just because you're the mayor, so that's why. I
No,
asked.
that's just one that I waited a couple years to get on it, and I,
Okay.
got to make some pretty cool.
I would like to stay on the agriculture and enterprise if possible. And I don't know the dates for the Debbie committee.
We are going to create those.
Okay. So depending on that, I might not be able to serve on that one either.
We do need to add Councilmember Mendoza to the Budget and Debt Committee.
But she changed her mind, that's right.
And please forgive me, because I'm OCD like this, but municipal is spelled incorrectly in line 8.
Charter city committees. And I think I would do that one too. I wonder why. Local control.
Municipal code review would be very interesting. I'll do that next round. I can go on the commission's interview committee.
Are you guys following? Is the council following to make sure that I'm getting these all
Yes.
correct? Okay.
If nobody else is going to jump on board, I would like to go back on the budget committee also. And the Water Management Association.
Question about line 20. Did we decide that that was still something that's there's a valid need for?
We are still trying to work with the county on it. So I would say that there's no need, I mean, it'd be good, but right now there's no meeting set up. And we have yet to come back to city council to say, hey, let's remove this.
Can we highlight the lines that need someone to step in?
We just go down each one.
Do,
District funding.
no.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Just feels like.
Do we have to vote on it?
No.
Oh. Okay.
I mean, I can do A-bag again. It's fine. It's a whole day. I have to take a vacation day, but it's fine. I'll do that one. Huh? Mhm.
I was alternate on that one. If no one else is interested, I can be alternate again.
Is anyone going to apply at the mayor's conference for the airport land use committee?
When is the mayor's conference?
So the mayor's conference is once a month. All the mayors get together in different cities around Contra Costa, and they have committees. So you have to apply to their committee to get accepted to this.
The committee is all the mayors in
Yeah.
the
Oh, okay.
county. Yeah.
And this was a committee that our past mayor sat on for many years.
As a pilot.
I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff. They're doing like the Uber style helicopter testing and all that kind of stuff. But it's a little competitive over at the mayor's conference.
That one has actually been empty, if I recall, since last July or
Oh.
May.
Okay.
He didn't reapply and no one else has reapplied since. So
I'd like to know the days.
it seems like it would be interesting, but.
I just don't know when the meetings are.
Yeah,
It says the third Thursday of each month,
Oh,
Oh,
7 PM.
30 Mule Road, is that Martinez?
well, I guess for that one, if we apply to the mayor, if someone applies to the mayor's conference and you get it, you can come back and tell Jaren, hey, I won.
Okay.
What is this? What is this one?
This one is regional and statewide planning. It's historically been the mayor, but not,
I never went.
and yes, Councilmember Mendoza, you were previously the alternate.
I was never invited.
do you know anything about what they do? I mean, I'm not clear on what they're doing and how frequently they meet and the rest of it.
I can chime in a little here. Among other things, COGS are an integral part of determining the RENA for each city. So they're a very important organization to have a voice on, and it might be something that this council would have views to share.
Thank you for that. That helps. Is there a way we can find out when they meet?
It's on the website.
Yeah, but I don't have the website open. I'm just.
I have it up.
They have a forum, it doesn't have their meeting.
It was very difficult.
April 30th is the next meeting. Let's see.
But March 5th from 2 to 3, I can't do it during the day.
They have the March 5th in person, Sacramento.
Oh, it's a Wednesday, April 30th.
I mean, it just sucks.
That one will be virtual, it's April 30th, March 5th.
Virtual?
Alternate virtual and in person.
If there's a virtual option, I'll do it.
Is it always virtual though?
No,
The alternate.
There is,
there's in person in March in Sacramento.
So
there's only 2 in person, the rest of them are all virtual.
do you want to take primary? I'll take alternate and then we'll just have to
Yes.
figure it out, just to see if we can keep a voice on there. So for a regional committee like this, does someone on staff somehow get us connected to being on their mailing list? How does that work?
I will be reaching out to any of these regional agencies and updating their information with your contact information.
Great, thank you. There is a lot of competition for the CCTA, for sure.
This is you.
No, that's one that gets appointed by the mayor's conference.
Oh,
It's a transplant appointment, yeah.
Yeah, actually, sorry.
So I think you'd have to be sitting on the transplant committee to be appointed then to that position as
Mhm.
well.
Well, we haven't voted on it.
He's the only one that said he was interested in transplant.
No, I said I was too.
The Delta 6 is a mayoral committee, correct?
Yeah. And Habitat Conservancy,
that's historically the mayor, right?
I wasn't on it.
No, the
I
mayor,
mean,
Joel.
yeah,
That's correct. It
Yeah.
has
it's
historically been the
just
mayor.
not required.
It's not
Okay.
I think they're all mayors. And county supervisors? I can't remember. I never went.
I was the alternate and I never went either, but I never got invited to anything, so I'm not sure what to expect on that one. Sure, if you've got it. The thing to know about this one too is even if you're an alternate, you still have to fill out the, which form is it?
700.
700.
Oh, event calendar. There's no meetings.
It doesn't pull up when you click on it.
It looks like it might be the fourth Monday, but it's not consistent
And
on
is
every
it
month.
virtual or in person?
From what I'm seeing, it looks like it's in person.
And where would that be? Or does it say?
It's weird.
It looks like it's Clayton.
I was going to say it is Clayton City Hall, or I'm sorry, the community library.
So it's Brentwood, Clayton, Oakley, Pittsburgh, and Contra Costa County.
They got remote
They-
access though.
They do have remote
Yeah.
access.
Okay, I'll commit to that. We do need an alternate, though.
I'll take. Sorry, I'll be a alternate to that if needed.
I
Not
got
virtual?
person.
In person?
Mm-hmm.
Do we know what day?
Like Wednesday nights or Thursday nights usually.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a good way to meet a lot of other electeds and find out some.
Do you want to sign up and I'll be your alternate? And then if you can't go, then I'll go.
Sure.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Did we make a decision on the John Marsh Historic Trust? I thought we weren't, yeah. You said you'll do it, Tony?
Yeah, I'm on it.
Oh, you're on it, oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I must have missed it on my list. I would like to stay on there.
Okay.
I can be your alternate for that. They send me all the stuff every week anyway, so I'm like, I can be your
It'd have
alternate.
been nice to be able to click this link.
That's for the John Marsh.
John Marsh.
Yeah.
This.
But
next
going
one.
back to the green empowerment, Darren, are you able to continue with that?
I attend as an alternate, and the mayor attended in the past. It's an economic development project across multiple counties.
So I understand it used to be, if I'm correct, led by Tim Grayson.
It was established by Assemblymember Grayson, who's now a senator. He still plays a key role in it. He allocated a few $1 million for the project. And he still participates in the program. They do meet on Fridays. I forget if it's monthly or every other month.
During the day, in person, remote.
A little bit of everything, but it's 9 a.m.
I do have
in
the
Martinez.
upcoming schedule, January 17th, March 21st, May 16th, September 19th, and November 21st.
And will that be, is it in person, Darren, or is it virtual?
People have participated both ways. I just don't know what's the county's requirements are.
You
for
can
this-
put me
for this
on there.
committee.
Did you want to do it?
And those dates are Fridays, if that makes
Okay.
a difference.
Yeah, I'll do it, yes. You can throw me on there.
And I'm still okay to be the alternate.
One left. The EIFDs.
Are we doing anything with the EIF?
I just brought that up too, and at this point, they said we should have something established, but there's nothing planned, basically.
Yeah, we could come back to the city council if needs be to.
Yeah,
appoint
if we need
people
it,
to
then
the
they can
committee.
come back.
And you can remove me from the trans plan.
Yeah, you can remove me from Tri-Delta and then they can flip a coin, the three of them.
What's that? 25.
So there are a few that are a coin toss.
Let's do it.
Last year, there was a discussion if it's one coin flip or best out of three. I just would mention it now since it got brought up
We just
last.
did one last
Let's go
time.
around.
moving.
So I think we figured something out. I don't want to take a chance with being on the Debbie committee, so I'll just relent on the, I'll give up the Tri-Delta Transit Board to be on the Debbie committee.
And I will give up Debbie to stay on, or to get on Tri-Delta.
So no coin toss.
You don't need my coin? Look at that.
It's really shiny and beautiful. All right, easy.
Could I? So Councilmember Pearson mentioned removing her name from,
Yeah, because I want to make
Tri-Delta.
sure I stay on Debbie committee. I don't want to take a chance with that one, so it's
And-
really, that committee is one of my most important ones right now.
and then the mayor, you mentioned,
Yeah, I'm willing to come off of Debbie. I know how important it is to the vice mayor.
so for, the Debbie committee would be Pearson and Maloney. And then we still have, and then you would remove yourself from Tri-Delta also, Mayor, or that'd be? Okay.
Councilmember Orlemans, you can take all the travel if you want.
I'm sorry, I missed it. What?
All the transportation committee travel stuff, you can take it if you want.
When will we establish the times or the meeting times for Debbie? When would we step tonight? Okay.
There's one and an alternate.
So on this one, we would know who would be appointed and who would be the alternate on transplant.
Technically, I think I said I would stay in my alternate spot if you didn't mind.
You were alternate in the past on that? Okay.
So to confirm, is Councilmember Orlemans remaining as alternate, or are you? Okay, thank you.
Just looking at the list, it's a lot.
Yeah, Charter City Committee. For Charter City Committee, I currently only have one.
Okay, we can do it on Monday. What do you need, Mondays or Tuesdays?
It's an ad hoc, which means it's
You'll learn
flexible.
so much about land use.
I will do the Charter City Committee.
I was thinking that was a good fit for you, actually.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Maloney, so you know, this is one that's, you can set at any time. There's not a public agenda. It's not publicly noticed where most of the other ones are, and we set the dates.
Thank
Or
you.
when I say we, sorry, the city council sets the dates.
Thank you.
I think the question keeps coming back about Debbie, so can we talk about that since all of the choices have been made for all the other dates?
Yes, now that we've got the committee assignments established on the screen, we can move on to establishing the meeting dates for Debbie and for our age and disabilities friendly communities.
So I guess, what's your work, what days are you available?
Could we do the first or third Tuesday of the month?
First and third Tuesday of the month is the planning commission meeting in here.
But it doesn't have to be here.
So, no, it's not. Debbie is not ad hoc anymore.
Oh, it's a standing
It has
committee?
to be in here, yeah.
Any time, I guess, for me would be.
Let me pull
these
up the,
meetings
we do
don't-
have a calendar of the council chamber usage. Let me pull that calendar up. It might help.
It's on page 216 of the agenda packet. The only problem is, yeah, we can do it at 5 on the Tuesdays, the first or third Tuesday.
It's only one Tuesday a month,
Mhm.
correct? Okay. Yeah. 5 would work with me.
And then we should ask HR Director Sakari Bashirs, are you available on the first or third Tuesday at 5 p.m.?
Yes, either I will be available or our equity analyst, Robert Bell.
Thank you. So first or third Tuesday is the, I'd probably prefer to go to the third one, just the first of the month makes me think about like everything that's due at work at the courts, so the third one is okay?
Yes.
Third Tuesday at 5 p.m.?
So as long as the understanding is that it could not go past 6:30 on that Tuesday to accommodate Planning Commission.
Yeah. Wait a minute. That means we're in here 3 Tuesdays a month. That's a lot. What other day did you have?
If we can alternate, Tuesday's the permanent day for me, but if we alternate, I could do.
No. I'll make it work. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Do you need to meet monthly, or are you able to meet quarterly?
This can meet at your, whatever timeline you
I'd prefer
determine
to start
necessary.
off with like a every other month, but I think if we need to amend that to quarterly.
If you need to amend it, would just have to come back to council for that
Yeah.
amendment, but you can make that amendment.
I'd like to go, Director Bashirs, do you have any type of suggestions? I'd like to be every other month to start off, and if we need to go quarterly, then we can go quarterly. And I'd like to get our equity analyst to weigh in at that first meeting to hear what his ideas were, but your thoughts?
I do agree, Vice Mayor. I think this is new, and to get us going, we're going to have those regular meetings. And again, as Amanda mentioned, we could come back and change it later.
Thank you.
So are we set for the third Tuesday at 5 o'clock?
Yeah, we'll finish right at 4:59. I'm sorry, at 6:59. We'll make sure we're out of here. Yeah, that's good. Sounds good.
Are we starting every month or every other month?
Every other month.
Okay.
And this would be effective which month? Would you like to start? Would January be too soon? I can field that to Sakari.
Yeah, can we go February?
Beginning February 2025, the third Tuesday, 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
every other month.
Yeah, that'd be good, because we'll skip March and go on spring break the third Tuesday with my children. That works.
For aging and disabilities, I actually think quarterly is okay at this moment.
Yeah,
Do you agree?
I agree.
We don't have any pending events or policy changes right now. Tian, any thoughts on staff availability and any good days of the week for that? Okay. Can you put the calendar on the screen? I guess the big thing now would be to try and not conflict with one of the other meetings that we've all got going on. And you're on land use and PAL, right?
So PAL's late in the afternoon, on a Tuesday night, I believe, but I'm an alternate.
This says PAL on Mondays at 6.
Is it Monday? Yeah, okay. It's, I'm the alternate, so. How about the second Monday?
At 6?
Sure.
Tian, would that work, or?
Wait a minute, I have to make sure this is not conflicting with my.
Yeah, me
I
too.
have a board obligation. I'm looking something about my board obligations.
So some days or some times that'll be right before the city council meeting the following night. but it's only quarterly, so that should be okay.
The earliest on Monday, you can meet at 6.
I can do 5:30.
Okay. Um,
So if we're trying to do it alternately from ag, those are the first Mondays, is that right?
Ag is the first Monday, yes.
Okay,
I'm still just searching something. I'm so sorry.
that's all right. Would it be possible too for there to be calendar invites set up for the internal meetings that we know are set times?
Absolutely.
That would be so helpful. Thank you. And could that be for the year?
We'll have the departments that staffs each committee send it out to the members of the committee for the
Great.
entire year.
Thank you.
All right, so. The Monday would be fine, I think.
So second Monday at 5:30, Tian? Okay. And it's quarterly, so when do we want to start? I mean, we could do February.
Okay.
Does that work, Tian? Okay, thank you.
February 12th. Do we want to pick the future dates, or are we just going to send out a meeting invite or something like that?
If you're doing quarterly beginning February, do you want it February, May, August, and November? I don't know if the November date would be a conflict. Second Monday seems.
May 13th. You said May, and then you said August. Did you say
May, August, and November. We could add in the description, similar to how we have with our other committees, that should the meeting date land on a holiday, then it would be scheduled to the following regular business
I won't be
day.
available for November 11th at all. I'm not going to be available any time in November or October. That won't work for me, period.
It could be just the 3 months then, if you want. It doesn't
Yeah, I can
necessarily
do
have to be all
August the 12th.
4.
So if we were to do that and then something came up, we would be able to potentially call
You
for a
can
special
hold a,
meeting?
you can hold a special meeting, absolutely. You
Okay,
can-
but at
the
this point, I'm
regular
fine with
meeting
the
date
3.
can be, yes, regular
Okay.
meeting date can be canceled, and you can agendize for a special meeting.
Okay.
Do you want us to add the language, if you're going to keep November date in there, to add the language if it falls on a holiday?
Sure.
I don't want to keep November date in there because I'm not going to commit to that. I've already said I'm not available.
No, I just meant, like, if the language about it being a holiday. that
Yeah,
it
the
would be-
language is fine, but I don't want to add the.
Okay.
No, we can keep the November date out.
So currently it'll just be for February, May, and August.
Yep. Yeah.
So 2/12, 5/13, and 8/12. Great.
So on the interview committee, that's just something we can arrange outside of this, correct?
Yeah, so Parks and Rec staff have the Arts Commission and your Parks and Rec Commission, and they'll be reaching out to find dates that work.
Great.
Those are public meetings that we do. I think we do it in here, so it's on Zoom and it's recorded.
Okay, thank you.
I also won't be available for going back to Debbie. we have the dates of 2/20, 4/16, 6/18, 8/20. For the November 12th, not available. So I guess we can cross that bridge when we get there for a special.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Any clarification from staff needed or further discussion from council?
I don't think I
Okay,
have
then we
any
can,
Clarification, I just didn't know if you wanted another view of the assignments for when you make your motion.
does everyone want to see the assignments one more time? Yeah, I think we're all good. Okay. A motion.
As detailed in the staff report, I move that we move forward with the formation of a charter city ad hoc committee, a formal creation of and meeting schedules for Debbie and age-friendly communities committee, and committee appointments as displayed on the monitor.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And any opposition? No, the item moves forward. So we are moving into new agenda request. If you have any you would like to add.
Yeah, I have.
We've got several.
Oh, sorry, whoever wants.
I don't know who was first. Okay,
sure?
Councilmember Mendoza.
Okay, so a couple of agenda requests. Some of them are just follow-ups. And this has been on my list for a while, but just a police hiring update. I know, Chief, you probably heard during the election about the 5th Beat. So if we could have a staff report on a hiring update on the 5th Beat and what the process is for hiring in Brentwood, what your role is, kind of what our role is, because I think people think we hire police officers and we don't. So that's a future agenda item. There's a new law in California where you can't park within, I think, 20 feet of a crosswalk, but you can choose as a city to not enforce that if you don't want. So I want that to come back to us and see if that is necessary in our city. I know it was brought on by San Francisco because of the way they are, and they're a big city. We're not a big city, so I need to see if we can opt out of it. There are avenues to do so. I think if we do this, it's going to take away a lot of parking from our residents, and I'm not sure that's what I want to do. I'm always concerned about parking. I want to bring back the Somerset Wall. We had already requested that staff spend time and money figuring out the who is legally liable for the wall and all of that. And I know it's going to come to budget, but this has been waiting for a long time. So I just like, before it even goes to budget subcommittee, an update on that. I'd like an update on the Vineyard Academy Parkway traffic study. The last time it came back to us, upon review, it was only 2 days worth of traffic studies, and we wanted a longer traffic study than that. Some of the businesses downtown have asked for the city to review the farmers market configuration. Some of the businesses would like it to go in front of where the Veterans Hall area is, because there's no businesses that get blocked on that side. Really, in the morning, it's the Veterans Hall, and I think Start First Five and the bank and things like that. And some people are saying their sales are hurting due to the farmers market. I think some people's hurt and some people's grow. So that's why I think we need to have a meeting to discuss the benefits and then the negatives and decide what's best for the city. I think we need to revisit the role of PIO. We had approved a budget for a PIO, and we moved away from that. But I think that as we grow as a city, I think it's important for us to have a clear message, one voice. I want to talk about what is going on with the traffic engineer role. I've heard rumors that we're not going to rehire it, but traffic being one of the biggest issues we have in Brentwood, I don't think that we should forego having a traffic engineer. I want an update on the amphitheater and see where we are on that. I want to know where we are with our town hall on businesses, because we had talked about having that. And I also, the fire department has walked away from the land behind Pioneer that we had sold them for $1. And in the sales agreement, if they were not going to use it for a firehouse, it was to revert back to the city. So I'd like to talk about where we are on the land behind Pioneer and how do we get it back under city ownership. Which was the one before that? The town hall with businesses?
Ma'am, if I may, over here.
Yes, hi.
Hello.
Who's talking?
Sorry. I do have planning as part of the strategic planning. The fifth beat, I'll have a presentation related to that and also encompassing the hiring. So if that doesn't satisfy, then we can come back and revisit it in something larger.
That sounds perfect. Thank you.
And Councilmember Mendoza, our Director of Engineering has been working on the new law as it relates to parking. That's already something's been working on, has diagrams. That might be something that just a memo can go out to the city council, and then if additional information is needed, you might add that, or if you just want to keep it on as a future agenda item, that's fine also. Just want to let you know that there's already been some work and the impacts downtown, so.
The impacts on the parking?
Impacts on parking.
But the parking is around the entire city where there's a crosswalk, correct?
That's correct, yes. My focus has been so far in the downtown. There are steps to it. Obviously, it impacts the whole city. You're right. But
So that's, yeah, so if you could send a memo, can we opt out? Or is there any safety reasons why we should opt in on some of the crosswalks? And if we have to opt in, then we can just paint them red, because I think it's going to be very difficult to enforce. And I think people are going to be getting tickets that don't understand what 20 feet is.
So just to clarify, would you like us to, you're removing the future agenda item, we'll send you information, then if needs be, you'll bring it back, or you want us to include this as a future agenda item?
Is the information that's coming back,
Alan, is
like,
that
what's the
something?
gist of the?
I could provide a summary of the law, SB 413, as well as how we are addressing it in coordination with enforcement, with police, and how other cities are also dealing with it. Obviously, it is California-wide.
So is the sentiment that we're enforcing it, we're not looking at even an opt-out option?
There is an opt-out option. From what I'm seeing, it's rather difficult to justify the opting out, but I could detail that in a memo, and we could go from there.
Yeah, because, I'd like to see that, because I know talking to some council people, they're opting out. So yeah, I'd like to see that.
Sure.
Or their police departments are just not going to enforce.
And just to clarify, you're seeing that in a memo, not in a future agenda item at this point?
Yeah, and then when I see the memo, then that will drive to if we need an agenda item.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Just want to add also, we did hire a new engineering manager, and that person's taking on the traffic engineer role. So we do have that filled currently.
Okay, so that's expertise in traffic.
Correct.
Perfect, thank you.
Are you removing that agenda item then? Councilmember Orlemans?
Just one update and/or text amendment changing the downtown specific plan to allow tattoo shops within the downtown.
Councilmember Maloney?
I'm requesting one agenda item for the use of staff's time and resources to facilitate a mental wellness and resilience workshop, a virtual one, in collaboration with the Contra Costa Justice Center and myself as a liaison. The symposium will be virtual. It will be held from probably 6 p.m. to 7:30 to ensure people can attend, and cover the topics of suicide prevention, mental wellness and mindfulness, and lastly, trauma and treatment.
Do you have a timeline on wanting to see that?
Within 8 weeks.
Because I was going to second that so it could get pushed further more quickly.
So we don't actually have a formal seconding process at council. The seconding process comes in when you send a written request. So if you want to send a written request, the two of you, it's well before the next council meeting, so we could deal with it in that fashion.
I could do that.
Okay.
Can you just copy me then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll do the same with Councilmember Orlemans. I'll send something in so we can make that move a little faster. If I can co-author that with you.
Absolutely. Thanks.
I have a couple of requests too. One of them is actually just a inviting someone to come and speak. I'd like to get a report from Contra Costa Fire District regarding vegetation control, fire risk, maintenance and reliability of hydrants, emergency response to potential wildfire incidents, like a full gamut of what would happen if something like the LA fires were happening here. What would that look like? What are we doing to prevent it? All of those, like just encompassing all of those things.
And instead of that being a future agenda item, I think that's
Yep,
something
that's
very
just a
simple.
request for a
Otherwise, we have to come
presentation.
back, read a staff report.
Yeah.
You make, so.
Yep.
I actually have something that just came up when you said that. Maybe an additional presentation possibly. Supervisor Burgess came in here in the chambers and talked about two things that were coming up, and residents have since been asking more about it. At the mayor's conference, she brought it up again, and so it would be nice if we can have some type of presentation to give residents an idea of the rollout plan for one, the fire department that's gonna come on Lone Tree and the youth center. We have no, as a council, we don't know anything about that happening in our city. So it'd be nice if we can get some type of formal presentation. She asked for more time that night. She did it during public comment. It'd be nice if she can come do a more formal presentation in her district.
So we'll make an invite to both the fire district and to the supervisor.
That'd be nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I did have.
For the youth center. Mhm, she said- Thank you.
That's okay. Do you want to hear more about the county building as well?
We'll ask her to provide a more
Might as well.
detailed update to all the items that she brought up during the last council meeting.
Okay. And then my second one is, we were at a meeting and heard from East Bay Regional Park District Director for our district, Colin Coffey, to say that the flag barn on Vasco Road was falling apart and close to being demolished and taken apart. He mentioned that he thought there might be a way for the city of Brentwood to accept the pieces, put them back together again, do something with it. I don't know if it's a donation or a purchase or to reassemble the entire thing, but like I would like to just get a sense of what it would look like if there's a place we could consider within city limits to either rebuild or take just that flag wall and do some sort of a commemorate location of that. But it would be a matter of working with the Park District. And I know we've already made the connection between you and Director Coffey, and I'm not sure if he's responded yet. But
I'll call him.
You'll call him? Do you have his
Yeah,
number?
I'll give him, I call him, so yeah, I'll give him a call. I'll
Okay.
give him a call too, and
Yeah,
I'll
he's-
co-author that with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something that can just go to art before? To the art
I mean,
commission?
would that, that's a very good question. Could that be potentially art
I
funds?
bring this back as a future agenda. There could be significant cost associated with a project like this, and the council could then give us direction.
Okay.
Let me ask another question without going into discussion. Is it possible to, so we can get more recommendations beyond, because we don't know what project is presented, which is just shiplap, it sounded like. So is it possible for it to go to them for recommendations to us instead or you just wanted to come back to talk about, then we're gonna send it back again and it's gonna be sitting up there
Our
waiting?
the council's adopted policy, this is the future agenda item process. I don't think we like it as much as you like it either. And so this is kind of the process.
Yeah, I know.
I get what you're saying, Vice Mayor Pearson, but I would recommend that it come back as a future agenda item.
Okay, because I think I'm gonna keep stretching, because I said something last time about something and it was pushed that my agenda item went to the Arts Commission to let them weigh in on a type of art installation or art project with what it is. So anyway, okay, that's what you guys want.
I think that we are set with all of these requests. Is there any clarification that we need to give?
Just as it relates to the two that are coming in by email, depending on staff time that the city manager, to try to speed up the process, I just want to make sure that the council knows that that'll be up to determine if there's enough information. For example, tonight there's an item as a future agenda item that we had information able to put them on. It might take longer as it relates to the tattoo shops to get additional information. Obviously, the wellness workshop might be something that's a little bit quicker. When we said it's a process that speeds it up, it's based upon if we already have resources associated with it, and we can easily put that. So as it relates to a text amendment to a code, that'll take a little bit longer than it would for a workshop with the in coordination with the Justice Center.
Are you saying for the staff report to be completed? Because I think the policy is after we send the email in, it comes on the next, immediately next. Are you just asking for us to give a little grace and time?
I just want to make sure the council knows it just takes some time to put together a text amendment. First of all, the council will have to authorize it. Is that?
So the next meeting, we're going to talk.
We talk about it,
Yeah.
and then we authorize it. So
Correct.
are you saying you want to delay the talk about?
No.
Okay.
It'll come on the next agenda item.
So we're set then, no further clarification anywhere?
We'll follow up with any council member to make sure it's correct on the next agenda.
Okay, thank you. Moving into the next item, we have a request from Councilmember Mendoza regarding the briefing related to the police department's media outreach process.
Yeah, I think this is, this goes back to my also asking for a PIO. I think we need a consistent process for dealing with the media, informing council of when things happen. So I just want a process, an operational process written down, like what happens, who does it, what is the expectation for us to be receiving information? What do we do about misinformation, right? Like there was there was the garage issue and someone did have a little bit of misinformation. It didn't sound right when it was posted. I don't know who called, but someone called and it got updated. But we need to figure out how to make sure that we're getting the right information out there and it's clear. So should it be by phone call? Should it only be by email? Like, should council get the information at the same time it goes out to the public media? I think it's just a discussion we have to have because we hear about it and sometimes we hear different than what's really happening, and like each of us will hear different information. It's different in the press, so I think that us having some kind of process would be helpful. And that's my agenda request item.
So this is calling for a staff report, but we don't have that yet, right?
This is just a request for a future agenda item, so this would be the city council saying, yes,
Yeah.
we want to move forward and allocate staff time and resources for the request of Councilmember Mendoza.
Which is the typical process, but it said staff report, so I thought maybe I was missing something.
Just that there is a staff report that provides the information so that it's on the agenda for the council to discuss.
Okay, so I would guess if there's any questions for Councilmember Mendoza first, then we can move into public comment.
At this time, public is permitted to address the city council on this agenda item. If you're participating via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're in person, please file a speaker card with the city clerk. We'll take public comments from those in the council chambers first, then those participating via Zoom. I believe I have one public comment. Melissa?
I would just like to voice my support in favor of a city, a permanent city PIO. I think it is, as somebody obviously who has worked in media, it is very easy for wires to get crossed. And so it is important for the media to know, like, this is the person that you contact for the information that you need. And therefore, they're getting the right information and able to disseminate the right information, because misinformation, as we all know, has become a cancer in the media. Thank you.
I have no additional speaker cards or hands raised.
Thank you. Any council discussion?
I'm in support of it. It is a little disheartening when you find out from other people before we find out from the city what's going on in your city. So I'd be in support of one.
I think it's a great idea to have a formal policy as to how it works, but some of that information gathered by the media or somebody else could be gathered through sources other than our police department, other than our city workers. And I think the policy would also have to include information that got out differently than just through our staff or through our police department information.
And I would think a policy addressing critical incidents happening on city property and the notification process of it to the council and the mayor.
If I may add something, it sounds like we're going to be moving in the direction of going forward. But if I may say something, internally within the police department, mostly it is my department that the information gets out. A lot of our local sources, we are not scannable. Our radios are not scannable, but fire is scannable. And when reporters show up on scene, they're going to report what they see or who they talk to. We have a policy related to who from our police department is allowed to talk to the media at that time. And we also have a procedure internally on when we send out information to myself and the command staff, and it's succinct. Part of the issue is if I have someone who's chased a fire scanner show up on scene, these scenes are dynamically unfolding and the supervisors on scene are trying to manage people, save lives. So I don't always get this information until later, a little bit later. And the last thing I want to do is share disinformation with you as a council. So that's why you may see it on social media first before you get it from us. If you would like a text message group to be set up for all of you, for me to say, hey, we're having a XYZ, and would you prefer it at 2 a.m. when I get it? And then you guys wake up to it. That's fine. That's the type of level I would like to see. I don't really need minutia into the weeds, but an overview of what you may be looking for would be fine. And then again, the last thing I want to do is give you disinformation of a dynamic unfolding scene that's occurring. And the last thing I want to do is have my supervisors stop to call me so that I can notify you.
I think I like the latter suggestions. I know they were all examples, but over communicating with the council would be really helpful.
And that 2 a.m. text that we wake up to, that's an expectation I would have too. That's perfectly fine. So then I guess we were looking for a motion on this to move it forward?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we spend staff time and money on coming back to council with a procedure for communication that we do to the public and as well as to council and, your directors, whoever else needs the information.
Any clarification before I second that?
So just making sure we're following the agenda here. So this would be the PD's policy at this point. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and no other clarification, Chief? Okay, then I will second that, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposition, that moves forward. Next, item I2, we're going to consider a request from Vice Mayor Pearson and Councilmember Orlemans for a city council consideration of funding a youth midnight basketball league and the assistance with a location.
Oh, need that on, need to move forward. Thank you. So this is being brought to council to kind of work interimly with dealing with all of our youth. There was a statement on public comment tonight about some individuals on a bicycle, and we've heard about the bicycle gangs around the city, and all of us have walked through the park at night and we see kids who I wouldn't say are bad kids at all. They're just kids trying to find a place. My son often frequents the streets of Brentwood because that's his playground. It was like in the 80s or the 90s, and many of us went to the mall or we had skating rinks to go to. Our kids have nowhere to go in our city besides like Bolero or other places like the streets. So this was brought to my attention by Pastor Kirkland, who has a church on the border of Brentwood, Oakley, Antioch border. He presented to me something that he can work in unison with Parks and Rec on is a Midnight Basketball League. Currently, the Midnight Basketball League meets in Antioch. Their complete funding sources was coming from the city of Antioch. But a couple of years ago, I think in the last year, out of nowhere, they weren't notified. They lost their funding, and they've been funding it 100% on their own. Why is it important in our city? Well, one is because they want to bring it to the city of Brentwood. 10 to 12% of their youth are from Brentwood, but also there's another percentage of adults who actually from Brentwood who participate in the Midnight Basketball League program. Right now, they've had, in the past couple of years, they've had 29 kids from Brentwood, 20 adults. And this league starts, I believe, at 7 p.m. and it goes to midnight. They dismiss the younger kids at 9 p.m. to go home and go to bed. But it's for ages 12 to 25. And what's phenomenal is if you don't come to, prior to just going and playing basketball, they actually have mentoring opportunities where you have a workshop. If you do not attend the workshop, you do not get to play. This is not forcing any type of religious anything on the students. It's nothing about religion involved. It's all about like job creation, different job opportunities, making positive choices in the community, and giving really mentors that when we talk about diversity, equity, belonging, and inclusion that look like the kids who are going. It's not for a specific race either. There were photos in the agenda packet, and you saw kids of all shapes, sizes, colors, ethnicity. It's not specific to a gender either. There's no attachment to that. People who identify in any gender can come, or sexual orientation can come and play. So I love that it's so diverse, and it gives opportunity for our youth and some of our, you know, that transitioning phase where, like my son keeps saying he's an adult, and I'm like, but you don't pay your own rent. Where they're not quite an adult. They just meet it on an age qualification. I asked them, and Councilmember Orlemans, I'll allow you to speak as well too, but Councilmember Orlemans and I met with Pastor Kirkland. We also met with, meeting with us also was the mayor. At the time mayor was Anissa and the vice mayor was Shannon. But now it's flipped. Councilmember Anissa and Mayor Shannon in Oakley met with us there. And so the four of us met to discuss some type of synergy, and they're looking to, Oakley is looking to see what Brentwood's gonna do before they go to bring it. But the two cities wanna work together in order to provide funding and resources. The ask by the Midnight Basketball League was funding financially and also a potential venue. They've been meeting on Lone Tree at the Antioch Community Center, where the water park is at. But because of there's now a basketball league where they charge people, because this is free, people don't pay for this. There is a separate organization, has nothing to do with Midnight Basketball League, that charges for charges for a league of basketball that is now utilizing the center. So the facility is no longer providing them the time that they were formerly having. So they're looking to do it. He did tell me they wanted to start their first season. The season just started this week. So they are looking to get some support from us starting their season in April. So their next season starts in April, and they would like to move it to the city of Brentwood, which would be phenomenal. One of the conversations we had with Oakley was if we can ping pong it between Brentwood and Oakley, between the two cities, and both cities providing funding. So in order to run the whole program, Councilmember Orlemans corrected me, was it like 50 or 60,000? Okay. But our ask tonight would be $25,000 from the city of Brentwood. To me, this is an investment in a organic type of youth center to provide some services to our students. And with the agreement that nobody from Brentwood will be rejected. That they will get first priority from the city of Brentwood. And then if I did contact our city manager, who contacted the school districts, both school districts, so Brentwood Union and Brentwood Unified, and both the districts said that finding basketball courts at this time is nearly impossible. They don't have availability. Because I was looking at some of those agreements that we have between both, because the Midnight Basketball Leagues, I believe, are on Friday night. So I said a mouthful. Would you like to add to that, Councilmember Orlemans?
Surprisingly, there's not a whole lot to add, but I did want to add that the majority of what caught my attention about the project was the mentorship before. So this meeting took place with the pastor probably 2 months ago, waiting for this to finally go all the way through and get onto our agenda. But I've gotten the opportunity to talk to a few police officers here in Brentwood that were formerly in Antioch that went and did some of the mentoring with these youth. And it had nothing to do with religion. It had nothing to do with furthering an agenda. It was, how do you find a job? How do you get to and from work if you have a job? And giving them ideas of how to grow up, how to become adults. And it was a phenomenal program that I jumped on board right away, and I appreciate Vice Mayor Pearson inviting me along.
I'll just add one last little thing before we move on is that when Councilmember Orlemans and I both got on council, we were invited by Building and Trades to one of the schools. And we saw a phenomenal school, and the question we asked was, how do the youth find out about this? And they were like, well, we're trying to figure out more, but it was like great opportunities to get some of our students into the trades who wanted to do alternatives to go straight to college with great careers and great benefits. Well, one of the things that Kirkland talked about was that they bring them to talk about all the different types of trades, not just, different types of trades and different type of career opportunities that a lot of these kids don't have exposure to. So when we asked how do they get the information, we kind of know this is one of the avenues to get the information to our youth. So I thought it also might be good to talk to PAL about this because this is the same type of, opportunities that PAL provides. So that's it.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions?
I would like to know, where would the basketball league be at? Like, is that something that we're going to look into to help them, or how is that going to work?
So I know that our city manager was talking about the schools were still trying to look for locations. And Kirkland was looking for other locations as well. That in April, they may have to stay at the Antioch location with it being open to Brentwood, but we have like a lack of resources when it comes to basketball courts indoor. In the summers, it wouldn't be as much of a problem, but in the wintertime, it is very difficult for them to find an indoor basketball court.
If I could just add to that, Pastor Kirkland had talked about the church, the physical church, building a gym at the church, and they've already started that process moving forward. So it's probably just a short-term issue of where, and then it will end up at that gym at the church anyway.
Thank you.
Okay. And so the $25,000 is for all year?
No, that's a good question. I think
The
so.
leagues aren't annual. They're not a full year. They're very short. I think it's 12-week.
So the 25,000 is for 12 weeks?
I can't remember the exact length of the league, each
So-
league, and I think he runs 2 a
I'm trying to
year.
think of a yearly amount, right, that we would spend.
I think he does 2 a year. And I think his ask was, I thought it was just a one-time grab of 25, not multiple.
Right,
So
I thought
he's
it was
asking
just,
for one time,
Yeah,
25,000?
25 in a year.
How many total kids?
Total, it was, let me go back. I think 168 total kids.
And then how many of those are from Brentwood?
There were 20, wait, hold on, it's broken down, but
I'm
that's been
sorry,
over the
this is
4
my finance
years.
head going.
It's over 4 years, actually. So I don't have the each league. But from 2021 to 2024, the total count was 246 kids and 29 were from Brentwood. So 11% were from Brentwood.
Do you know
And
what?
then adults, it was 10%. They had 188 adults, but that's over 3 years. So they had another 10% adults.
And I guess I'm trying to figure out what is the total expense for, what's his total?
60,000 for the entire year, I believe.
And he's asking us to pay 25,000 of that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll discuss a little bit more come discussion.
Yeah. And again, he comes in out of his own pocket to pay for, what does that cover? Just to be able to tell you all what it covers. It covers the venue. It covers, he has to get the jerseys, which they try to reuse them as much as possible. The basketballs, but more importantly, referees. As a former owner of a intramural sports league, the referees are extremely expensive. And he likes to give the kids the opportunity to have real life basketball experience, but they feed these kids every single night. So that it includes food every night. So they eat a full meal.
So my question would be, would Parks and Rec be involved with the management of this at all?
Well, one of the things that he said he would like to do to increase the number of students in Brentwood is to be in our guide that we put out. So he said the guide has always worked for them when they do it in certain cities. And he said that he was getting the numbers from Brentwood without the guide. And so he said he can only imagine if we put it in our, am I saying it right? Activities guide, thank you. If we put it in our activity guide, especially that it's a free event, he thinks that it would sell out with majority of Brentwood.
So would there be any ongoing staff time to manage this?
Just putting it in activities guide. Otherwise, he
Okay.
doesn't need any staff. He's not asking for any support from staffing.
Okay.
They run it, the Midlight Basketball League committee runs it by themselves.
So it appears at this point that there's not a separate launch versus an annual cost. Like this is just the
Just a
the ask
one-time,
is just,
mhm.
okay. I think that's all my questions for now.
Would the 25,000 fund the construction of the basketball courts that they're building?
No, 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 no,
No,
no.
the gym that the church is talking about building is being funded through the church and has
Got it.
nothing to do with the
It's
funding.
funded by the county, actually. The county just gave them, I think, $1 million to fund his gym. So he.
Measure X?
Yeah, I don't know if it's Measure X funds, but he just got a grant from the county for $1 million. He said when we did the walkthrough, so, and they need I think they need another meal to finish it off. But he says they should be breaking ground sooner than later.
So if we have no other questions on this, we haven't even gone to public comments yet, right? Okay, we need to go to public comments.
At this time, the public is permitted to address the city council on this agenda item. If you're participating via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're in person, please fill a speaker card with the city clerk. We'll take public comments from those participating in the council chamber first, then from those participating on Zoom. I did not receive any public comments in person, nor do I have any hands raised in Zoom.
State that with this being a multi-city sort of thing, our youth absolutely needs third spaces to go to. That is without question. I do feel to maybe lessen the ask on Brentwood would be to go back to the county and see what, with them wanting to bring a youth center, what they're doing to build these spaces as well, and what they can do to potentially pitch in monetarily as well, because the money's there. They could give us a little bit of a hand.
I have no additional speakers.
Okay, so council discussion. I did want to mention something. A year and a half ago, I was invited to an event in Antioch by a nonprofit called the Dream Team. Have you heard of them? You have heard of them. Okay, so phenomenal program, sounds very similar to what you're talking about. I actually copied their little blurb on their website because I wanted to read it too, but it sounds very similar. We're more than just a basketball team. We're a community dedicated to empowering young athletes to reach their full potential both on and off the court. Our mission is to instill valuable life skills such as leadership, teamwork, and perseverance through the game of basketball. And they do very, very similar in that they do the mentoring and all the rest of it as well, and have ceremonies and events to recognize the hard work of the kids, all of that. So I mentioned it just in case there's any connection. I don't know if you need to have another entity involved with this. I remember at the time they were very interested in talking further about getting into here too, because they weren't at the time serving Brentwood, but that's more of a observation than anything else. Anything you wanted to add? Okay.
I think basketball is fantastic. Both my girls played. It's the only sport I watch. I can't stand any other sport, so I love it. I love the idea of nighttime basketball. The only hiccup I'm having is the investment, because if there's 256 kids playing or 246 kids playing, and only 29 are from Brentwood, that's 11.8%. So that's about $7,000 of the 60. So do you think that this is something we can go to Delta 6 and talk to Oakley and Antioch and split that 60,000 across the three cities to see if everyone plays their portion? Because I want to pay for it, but then I'm using Brentwood tax dollars for Oakley and Antioch.
Well, I think he's asking for us to put it in our recreation guide. He only got those numbers because that was no marketing to Brentwood. The kids just coming over and being accepted. We've already gone to Oakley, and Oakley is interested in this, making it more of an Oakley-Brentwood thing, and making us the priority. But remember, it's $60,000 per run, and he's only asking for 25. So you're talking about $120,000 a year, and he's asking for us to fund 25,000. Yeah. So your numbers change a little bit more. So I hear you, and I think that was both of our asking there, like, how do we make sure? And he's like adding it to that guy. I mean, when that thing comes out, I think some of those programs I call, and they're sold out within fairly quickly. It reaches our students, it goes to our schools, and then the outreach to the school, which they didn't even do that before. This was just word of mouth, getting our Brentwood kids there.
Yeah.
So I think it would be something, and I mean, one of the things that I kind of appreciated that you actually brought up was that we need to find some other alternatives since we don't have a building. And I think, 25, while we're talking about putting the infrastructure up for 200 and something $1,000, we spent 180 already on it. 25,000 is minimal to get our kids off the streets.
So my other question is, will this location still be in Oakley? The one, I'm looking at the map, that's really far into Oakley. The Grace Bible Fellow, is that where he's gonna have it, or where is he gonna have it?
Eventually, he's opening a gym, but
Like, I wanna give. It's just the amount to give. And then what's our legal liability once we start putting it in our?
And how much of this should be discussed if it actually comes back to us? Because is this like the full-on?
Yeah, we're having a full-on discussion now, yeah.
So I'll add one little thing before. Can I add one quick thing? As far as liabilities, it would be like any other programming that goes through Parks and Rec when we have third parties. So the same liability. I ask these questions already to staff. It's the same type of liability insurance, same thing that we would do with a third-party vendor that comes in, like when Worky Wonders come in, or any of the other third parties that makes it in the resource guide. So there would be a little synergy about making those contracts and agreements with Parks and Rec.
So then it comes back and we can have all the discussion about it. Okay, cool.
Katie, we're going to...
I was just going to say that, yes, we would bring that information back because currently, and as far as I know, historically, it has always been the case that the activity guide is really reserved for programs that are run through Brentwood. It doesn't mean it always has to be that way, but then questions come up about if we're going to advertise programs carried on by third parties, how do you make that decision as to whose programs we advertise? So it opens up sort of a bigger can there. It doesn't mean it can't be done. It's just more questions to answer. So it would be something to think about. That's all.
Okay. I guess there's no other clarification or discussion, so we can take a motion on this?
I would like to make a motion that we spend staff time and money researching the Midnight Basketball Youth League here in Brentwood and picking up a location for that to take place.
And possibly funding $25,000 for it.
So just for staff clarification, so it's the possibility of the city providing essentially grant money in the amount of $25,000 to this organization and facilitating and finding a location for this program to operate in the year 2025? Yeah, okay. Anything else that you want in this report? Yeah. Here comes Tien.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt City Council, but just taking the notes, I think one of the things that was mentioned also was possibly exploration of information from Parks and Rec of inclusion activity guide or other advertisement means. I just kind of want to capture that as well. I think City Attorney was kind of summarizing the motion. You're talking about exploring providing information to explore facilities, providing information on the funding ask of $25K, and the other piece is what are other information that we provide of inclusion and activity guide or other advertising means. Just trying to capture all that so we can provide the information so that City Council can have the info to have that discussion. So just want to make sure I'm not speaking for anyone, but that's kind of what the ask is.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
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 And any opposition? No, the item moves. Thank you. The final agenda item is I3, a request from myself and Councilmember Mendoza to receive an update of the Parks and Recreation Commission discussion regarding operational factors related to the Creekside pickleball courts and possible consideration of other options. And Councilmember Mendoza, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, I think we've all heard about what's going on at Creekside. Loud music. At one point when the lights went out, someone went in and adjusted the electrical boxes themselves to turn the lights back on. People are there before 7 a.m. Even after it closes, people hang out there and they're very loud. The pickleball itself is very loud. I think it's probably over our decibel allowance. And just talking to other cities, there is things we can do. And I think we need to look at options. This had come before us before. We sent it to Park and Rec, and then it died at Park and Rec, and I'm not sure why. But, so since we couldn't get it done at Park and Rec, I have to bring it back again. But it's just trying to figure out a way because these people bought their homes. They did not buy a house near a pickleball court. You could go through the news and you will find issues with pickleball courts all around the country. They're getting shut down actually because they're a nuisance and a lot of them go over the decibels that are allowed. So I just want to see if we can find some solutions that, whether it's hours or, and we could talk about solutions later on, but, just something to help the neighborhood.
And I'd just like to add, I think we've seen social media posts about this over and over again. There's a current one on Nextdoor that's asking neighbors to chime in on it, but parking is also an issue. And I think the quality of life of the people, especially living right there, but within hearing distance is a lot farther, I think, than any one of us knows. And I know that we've done some work on enforcement. I know we've sent police department there, but I think we just need to look at some other options. I did check with Tim about why Parks and Rec recommended not moving forward, and they said that it was more about people noise than ball noise, and that the visibility issues with some sort of a screen would be difficult for the police department to actually enforce anything or track any kind of activities that were going on. But I think we need to keep this one going because it's just been a challenge big time to the people that are living there. So any clarifying questions? Okay, then we can open up public comment period.
If you're participating via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're in person, please file a speaker card. We'll take public comments from those in the council chamber first, and then from those participating via Zoom. I did not receive any speaker cards in person, and I have no hands raised in Zoom.
Thank you. Council discussion on this item.
Yeah, I mean, I want to find a solution. I want to do a sound study. I don't know what to do with the parking because the people keep parking across their driveways. They keep and then they ask to move their cars and there's bickering going on. I actually go and I park there at night and I turn my lights off and watch, and it is a hot mess. If I live there, I don't know how I would handle that, but I think noise, parking, loitering, drinking, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, loud music, it's like a club sometimes. I mean, it needs to be addressed. And I don't know if we need to maybe fix the hours to a little bit later in the day, a little bit earlier at night. When I've talked to other cities, what one city did is they have a gate with a code. So you kind of have to go through Park and Rec and rent the courts. So you put in your code. It's a unique code every single time. So the city knows who's there, the police knows who's there, and if something happens, they know who's responsible for it. We could talk about, I know maybe the sound curtains aren't the best, but I think we have to talk about sound curtains and, because it's really loud.
I have a question. Chief, is there regularly patrolling of the area?
Yes, we've been still doing our auto-generated calls for service. I will say, I have a proposal coming before council, a project we're working on in the very near future where we may have a solution to the screening and the camera to be able to observe the courts after hours and be able to be proactive from the side of having dispatch monitor and so forth. So that'll be coming within the next 2 or 3 council meetings. We're just working out issues before the staff report is done, so.
Thank you, because I was going to ask, was there a camera there? I think I asked that in a staff meeting, and then I was going to also ask for Parks and Rec if it's gated and closed, or if it's accessible to the public after. Do we have an hour for the park to be shut down? And if not, is it just a sign? No locking of the gate or anything.
To my knowledge, there is no locking that goes on. And I don't know that there is any type of infrastructure out there to put on an automatic lock that after certain hours it locks. At this point, it's just the sign that like most of our parks have where dusk to dawn, so.
No, I will say there are some cities that have actually shut down their pickleball courts. So I think we need to talk about doing a sound study for sure. I mean, all this other stuff is great, but if it goes over our own city guidelines on sound, then we're breaking our own rules, like we did it. And I understand, I don't see the difference between people and a ball making noise. Noise is noise. And I wouldn't move next door to a club, right? Like a day club in Ibiza. So I wouldn't want to live next to a pickleball court, which if you go there, it's very similar. It's like people are hanging out. I mean, I've seen people open their trunks, drink out of their trunks. So it's happening, and they're bringing in their own speakers. So I hope we can find a solution, you know.
Which could potentially include maybe connecting with other cities with similar issues to see what they're doing.
Well, some
Best
of them are just shutting it
practices.
down, you know.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, we can take a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to spend staff time and money, and this is the second time I've made this motion, to look at coming back to us with possibilities of a sound study, locking gates, a reservation system for the gates, which would be an installation, sound curtains, adjusted hours. I think it closes at 9 right now. We might need to go up to 8 because by the time people leave, it'll be 9 because right now they're hanging out and it's 10 when they leave. I can't think of anything else that we would want looked at.
We already had parking painted, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question about that motion.
Yeah.
Before it's seconded.
Mhm.
Sound study, will we get back from the report a do not exceed amount on the sound study?
They give us all of the decibels during the day.
No, I'm talking about do not exceed amount for cost of the study.
Oh,
Based upon what I hear the motion is we would come back prior to creating a sound study, and we'd provide a variety of options, information. And then if the council at that time wants to proceed with the sound study, we'd have to go out to get bid. We'd have to ask for allocation of funding for it. We'd have an idea of what the cost would be. And we'd also, the nice thing is there's sound studies out there for pickleball. If you want it specific to our location, distance from homes, we could do that here. But that would all be part of when this comes back to the city council. So that'll take some time, right? And I think the goal is to try to bring these back within the first quarter after a future agenda item. And then the council would make a determination if you wanted to do a sound study or not at that time.
Thank you. Wait, first quarter, you're saying?
So the goal is always to bring these back within a quarter, within 3 to 4 months of when the city council requests the future agenda item.
Okay, then I second it.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Maloney, do you have a question?
I was just going to say, do we need a sound study if we already know it's a problem? Maybe we should just move to fixing the issue without the sound study.
we could work at fixing it, and then if it doesn't work,
Yeah.
then we can do a sound study, yeah.
Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, the item passes. And at this point, we're just looking for one more motion.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, good night, everyone. Thank you.